Chapter 381. Li Chenglong and Xiangbing's faces turned red. And Xiangbing's face was even redder. Almost everyone mentioned the sect leader today, but how did this title come about? Wasn't it because he beat her up? How could he say that she wasn't happy, wasn't angry, wasn't resentful? Sui Xiaoduo looked calm as he beckoned Li Chenglong forward. Everyone make way. Hey, we're going out. If there's anything, we can talk about it later. It's my first time here, so please take care of me. Seeing that it was the two of them, many people laughed. Sect leader. King of Swords. Many of these voices were purely joking. At most they were jeering, but there were also quite a number of people who were mocking and had a deeper meaning in their words. There was also a portion of people whose voices were mixed with jealousy and hostility. Sui Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong laughed loudly, as if they didn't hear anything. The two of them kept waving their hands enthusiastically, as if they were celebrities receiving their fans. They squeezed their way out of the crowd of senior students and calmly left. Further away, Zhang Xiaofei came with a smile. On the roof, several pairs of eyes were watching all of this. One of them was the principal, Yi Chongqing. The others were watching from different floors. Their eyes were either cold or gloomy. Is this the genius that Yi Chongqing values the most? One of them asked calmly. Is this the Sui Xiaoduo who killed Yener and the others? Someone asked. His voice was as calm as water without any ripples. Is this Sui Xiaoduo who killed Wu Yintian? Is this Sui Xiaoduo who is known as the #1 genius? Is this Sui Xiaoduo, the #1 seed in Yi Chongqing's heart? The five people said in different tones. It seemed that everyone was calm and emotionless. However, what everyone was thinking in their hearts was a matter of opinion. Hidden Dragon High School had a principal and 8 vice principals. Among them, except for the first vice principal Xiang, who was plotted against and suffered a strange injury. The stench was so strong that he had not come out for years. Everyone else was here. It was the start of the school year. However, just by looking at these vice principals, one could see that the situation of a power struggle had already begun. On the other hand, Principal Yi Chongqing's heart meridian was injured. He could only last for 3 more years at most before he could no longer continue. In other words, in at most 3 years, Hidden Dragon High School would welcome a new master, a new principal. From then on, there was a change of dynasty. Sui Xiaoduo and the others entered the school at this time. It could be imagined that when a storm was about to break out, Sui Xiaoduo and the others had practically charged into the heart of the storm. And now Sui Xiaoduo knew nothing about it. Perhaps even if they knew, they might not take it seriously. This is our dormitory. Sui Xiaoduo looked at the villa that was built next to the school. It covered an unusually large area, especially the courtyard of 1,000 square meters. He was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. No, you just rented it for yourselves. Zhang Xiaofei said indifferently. We rented it ourselves? Yes, we rented it ourselves. Zhang Xiaofei took out a rental contract. You will rent this villa at a price of 1 million per year. You are very rich, do you understand? What a joke. Sui Xiaoduo shook his head. I'd rather live in a rat's nest than spend 1 million per year. It's your business whether you spend it or not. But you must sign this contract. You must sign it. Zhang Xiaofei transmitted his voice. This is the principal's private property. You 2 little bastards only need to pay 50 yuan of rent every month, and you can stay here for a long time. This contract is just a cover to deceive people's eyes. Quickly sign it. Really? Ha ha ha, 50 yuan is really a good price. Actually, what I have is money. Ha ha ha, collecting money is my hobby. But I can only earn if I can spend it. If I don't spend it after earning a lot of money, I feel uncomfortable all over. Sui Xiaoduo immediately changed his attitude and happily signed the contract. Then he moved in with Li Chenglong. Boss, I want to share a room with you, Li Chenglong said. Which room are we staying in? Sui Xiaoduo was immediately enraged and scolded. You heartless Li Chenglong, can you even give me a little bit of personal space? This villa has more than 10 bedrooms. Only the 2 of us will live in it. Do you still want to share a room with me? Is there something wrong with your sexual orientation? I don't care. Anyway, I want to share a room with you. Li Chenglong was very stubborn. Sui Xiaoduo's flaming sun scripture was of great help to Li Chenglong. Li Chenglong would not give up no matter what. Brother, Sui Xiaoduo begged. I know what you want to do, but can't we share a training room? Why do we have to share a bedroom? Li Chenglong hesitated for a long time before he finally agreed. Then, okay. Shuo Duo felt as if he had been pardoned from a dream. He wiped his sweat and muttered, I'm really afraid that I'll shoot you. If that happens once or twice, I won't be able to clear my name even if I jump into the river. My eternal innocence will be gone. Zhang Xiaofei looked at the two of them from the side. The two of them settled down and tidied up their own rooms. The training room was on the 4th floor. Shuo Duo chose to settle down on the 3rd floor. Li Chenglong settled down on the 2nd floor. Shuo Duo threw himself on the bed. He put his hands behind his head and thought about things. Today's registration, he felt that something was wrong. This Hidden Dragon High School. Roughly speaking, there seemed to be several forces colliding back and forth. I shouldn't have fallen into a whirlpool all of a sudden, right? What's more, he couldn't feel the unity and uplifting aura that a high school should have. The whole Hidden Dragon High School gave Shuo Duo a feeling, as if he had walked into the governor's office. All the forces were constrained and restrained. Everyone was racking their brains to fight with each other. They were all actively trying to step on each other to climb up. It was roughly this kind of officialdom aura. I have to say it's really abnormal, Shuo Duo thought. Including the villa that he had moved into, it seemed that there was a scheme behind it. Moving in, the safety factor suddenly increased by more than 1,000 times. However, in the whole school it seemed that only the two of them had this kind of treatment. Wouldn't it also set them up as living targets? Regarding this point, Shuo Duo was not afraid. After all, the advantages outweighed the disadvantages. However, before he could figure out whether it was good or bad, he still didn't want to be used by others for no reason. After today, there would be countless hostile auras, especially many senior students who would take him as their target. Indeed, it would come. Could it be that all high martial arts schools are like this? Forget it, let's take one step at a time. There will be a way when the car reaches the mountain. There was also something that made Shuo Duo dissatisfied. This courtyard was really big, but it was too spacious. There was no shelter at all. How could he practice hammering? This was a big problem that needed to be solved in the short term. Just now he looked around. This villa also had a basement. However, how could he practice hammering in the basement? With two hammering, the villa would be gone, and it seemed that he had to think of a way. As Shuo Duo thought about it, he dealt with the mattress on the bed. He hollowed out a large piece of the mattress in the middle. Then, he spread the large piece of top-grade jade of astral souls that he had obtained on the way here on the mattress. And just right. I'll use the top-grade jade of astral souls as a mattress. I can sleep and practice at the same time. I'm rich. That's how willful I am. Damn it, Li Chenglong, you still want to sleep on the same bed with me? You must be blind. Shuo Duo quietly circulated his cultivation method. After 99 circulations, he reached a perfect autonomous cycle. His eyelids drooped and he fell into a deep sleep. In his sleep, Shuo Duo was in a daze. He actually dreamed of Xiaolong, who had cheated him of his providence points. Xiaolong was obviously very excited. You're here? That's great. Finally, someone can play with me. Shuo Duo didn't like it at all. Go away. You've benefited from me, but you don't give me any benefits. Why would I want a friend like you? Xiaolong felt wronged. I really don't have any benefits to give you. I'm poor. Shuo Duo ignored it completely and expelled Xiaolong from the dream. No benefits. Squatting on a mountain of gold and complaining about being poor? You obviously have a lot of wealth, but you don't give me anything. You even want to be friends with me? Hey, Brother Long, you think too much. Your grandpa's will only suffer once at most. If there are no benefits, even God won't allow it. Do you think my wealth is second to none? Xiaolong felt wronged as he was thrown out of Shuo Duo's dream. He turned into a gust of wind and pondered in the air. My good brother wants benefits, but I don't have any. What should I do? I'm waiting online. It's quite urgent. On the 2nd floor. Li Chenglong didn't have such a big heart like Shuo Duo. He actually fell asleep early. He was much more meticulous, and his thoughts were much more complicated than Shuo was. What Shuo Duo noticed, Li Chenglong also noticed. What Shuo Duo didn't notice, Li Chenglong still noticed. This isn't right, it's really not right. I don't know if Zua noticed. Sai, with his careless temper, he probably didn't notice much. But I have to figure out all of this. Otherwise, my existence will really become a decoration. Li Chenglong frowned and thought. He used his eidetic memory to summarize everything he saw, heard, and felt in the past few days bit by bit. Settling us in this private villa, does it mean that if we live in the dormitory, the school won't be able to guarantee our safety? If that's the case, doesn't that mean the principal has lost control of the school? At least part of it has been lost. But how could this be? Li Chenglong worked until midnight. He had a total of 70 to 80 clues, and the more he thought about it, the more complicated it became. But there were no new clues for him to refer to, and his deduction was at a deadlock. It was difficult to continue. Forget it, I'll think about the follow-up after I understand the school's situation tomorrow. Now, these can only be said to be superficial, and it's not enough to make any conclusions. But I have to get these clues as soon as possible. This is the teeth of the storm, and Zua and I can't afford to take it. Li Chenglong thought silently. Just as when Xingtian said, Hidden Dragon would be troublesome from now on. The two people who came were too unusual. The power after Zua Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong's thoughts collided. No one could imagine how much power it would produce. Chapter 382. Dawn of the second day. Just as when Xingtian had said, they began their life and death training. The entire class began to fight each other. When Xingtian watched the battles with his hands behind his back, everyone wanted a good ranking, so they naturally gave it their all. Dust filled the sky and the battles were intense. When Xingtian's face was cold, he stood outside of the arena with his hands behind his back. He didn't seem to care about the battles happening in the arena. But in reality, he could clearly see everyone's condition, strength, and battle situation. As a spirit-controlling cultivator, his divine sense covered the entire arena. There wasn't any blind spot. His spiritual energy was connected to the 30 heaven reversal pills in his spatial ring. Even if it was a fatal injury, the heaven reversal pill could instantly save the life. There were also a variety of other elixirs and various high-grade medicinal liquids. His interspatial ring could be said to have everything and in large quantities. Within the school, 100 nutrition cabins were already in place. They were all maintained in a state where they could throw people in at any time. These were the highest grade nutrition cabins. Every year during the first month of the new school year, these cabins were free to use. This was the foundation of the Hidden Dragon High School. Moreover, this was only a small part of it. It was the tip of the iceberg. The tuition fee for studying in the Hidden Dragon High School was as high as $5 million. Although it was extremely expensive, this money wasn't wasted, because martial cultivation was always accompanied by blood, injuries, and sacrifice. In the Hidden Dragon High School, as long as you didn't die on the spot, it meant that you wouldn't be fine. Moreover, you could recover to your peak condition in a day. However, all of this required money. It required a large amount of money. There was also the strength of the teachers. They were also the best in the continent. These teachers, although their individual strength might not be that strong, but in terms of educating students, in terms of foresight and experience, and in terms of targeted cultivation, even the frontline marshals might not be able to compare. This was the so-called specialization in a field. For example, when Xingtian now. He only stood at the side of the arena for a moment, and he had already confirmed many things. Many students practice martial arts and mental cultivation methods passed down in their families. However, after a single battle, when Xingtian could easily determine the aptitude and meridians of this student, and whether there was a more suitable cultivation method for him in the Hidden Dragon High Martial School. Once it was confirmed, it would immediately be ordered to change its cultivation. Not bad. When Xingtian was watching Li Chenglong's battle, there was no need to watch Zua Xiaoduo's battle anymore. It was already over. He was now sitting at the side, resting like a professor. From start to finish, he had only thrown out 2 punches. He sent Xiangchong flying 13 meters away with 1 punch, and Meng Zhongjun flying 17 meters away with another. Then he said pretentiously, "You two don't have to fight anymore. I've already determined the winner of both of you. I used the same amount of strength to fight you two. Xiangchong is still slightly stronger." The class monitor's high and mighty aura was fully displayed. With these 2 punches, everyone in the class, including Li Chenglong, wanted to beat him up, but no one dared to challenge him. No one was stupid. If he were to look for Zhou Xiaoduo now, he would be looking for trouble. He would also be laughed at by others after the incident. There was no benefit to it at all. However, Li Chenglong was different. Don't look at the fact that many people were still calling him cult leader, and their attitude was even more respectful. However, when they attacked, they didn't show any mercy at all. After more than 10 battles, Li Chenglong was beaten up until his whole body was swollen like a rubber ball. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. However, he still defended his position as the vice-class monitor and secured the 2nd seat. Xiang Chong was 3rd, Meng Chengjun was 4th, Yu Yan'er was 5th, Pai Yibao was 6th, Hao Han was 7th, and Jia Kuang was 8th. That is for Xiang Bing. Xiang Bing. When Xingtian stopped Xiang Bing's battle, "What are you doing? Are you slacking?" His tone was very strict. Xiang Bing's face was pale. She had been suppressed by her opponent for several consecutive battles. She had lost one battle after another. "Is this how you fight? Where's the overlord fist of the Xiang family?" When Xingtian was furious, "Is it eaten by you?" In the previous few battles, Xiang Bing did not have the slightest bit of momentum. She was restrained in every battle, especially in the last one. Her opponent's strength was more than a level lower than hers, but she was unable to defeat him even after a long time. She was even at a disadvantage. The root of the problem was that he was too timid and did not dare to make a move. Once she did not dare to fight, how could she fight? She would lose no matter how she fought. Xiang Bing walked over. Her face was as pale as paper. Tears were rolling in her eyes and she was about to cry. "You still have the face to cry? Do you have any shame?" When Xingtian was merciless when it came to scolding people. He said with a dark face, "The overlord fist of the Xiang family was beaten into a turtle by you. You can't wait to hide in the lid. Why do you still fight?" Xiang Bing's tears finally fell. "Wu, what are you crying for? If you continue to cry, go back to the Xiang family." When Xingtian shouted angrily, "I'm here to be a teacher. I'm not here to coax children for the Xiang family." Xiang Chong saw that the situation was not good. He hurriedly stepped forward. "Teacher 1, Little Bing just didn't know what to do. You still have the face to intercede?" When Xingtian said angrily, "Based on your poor performance, you think you're qualified? Is it glorious to be 3rd in the class? You were sent 13 meters away by one punch. You don't even have the courage to fight a second move and you admit defeat directly? This is the overlord spirit of the Xiang family. Don't tell me you admitted defeat because you admitted defeat?" Not convinced. I'll say the same thing even in front of your great-grandfather. Just by looking at the 2 of you, the Xiang clan is finished. It's all over. When Xingtian said seriously, "Xiang Chong, if you don't want the Xiang family to have no successors, go home and find a wife to carry on the family line. Xiang Bing, you two, go home and find a husband and a baby. I don't want to teach students like you too." These words were too harsh. Xiang Bing gasped for breath. For a moment she even forgot to cry. She said angrily, "Teacher 1, you've gone too far. It's my own business that I'm not good enough. What does it have to do with my brother? What does it have to do with my family? You still know that you're not good enough?" When Xingtian said mockingly, "It looks like you can still be angry? You don't even know how to fight. What right do you have to be angry?" "Oh, it's because you were beaten up by Li Chenglong on the Longhu list. You've been suffering from the after effects ever since? You don't dare to fight anymore? You've become a turtle? You've been crippled? That's why you've been defeated in a row? Then why did you come to the Hidden Dragon High School? To be a decoration or a vase? Or a punching bag? Something to boost other people's confidence?" When Xingtian chuckled, "What did I say wrong about you? With your mentality, what's the difference between you and a frightened bird or a fish that escaped the net? Do you think you're worthy of being a cultivator?" Xiang Chong, who had been ignored on the side, couldn't help but chime in. "Little Bing has been working hard to overcome these days. Although she's been defeated many times, she keeps on fighting. But last time, she was really beaten too hard. The psychological trauma can't be eliminated in a short period of time." As he said this, he couldn't help but glare fiercely at Li Chenglong. Li Chenglong, on the other hand, scratched his head in confusion. Xiang Bing's current state was actually because of me? But I'm innocent. How can you blame me for this? When Xingtian narrowed his eyes and said, psychological trauma? Good reason, what a strong reason. Unfortunately, this reason doesn't work on me. I don't care which family you're from. I don't care what kind of background you have. I don't care what kind of illness you have. I'll give you the last 3 days. He extended 3 fingers. If you can't overcome the so-called psychological trauma, you can either get lost or leave my class. Now the rankings are fixed. Xiang Bing is ranked last. No one else is allowed to take the initiative to challenge Xiang Bing. When Xingtian then took the roster and crossed out Xiang Bing's name, he said coldly, 3 days. If you still can't change the situation, then you're already crossed out. Also, when I call your name, take a step forward. People like you who practice family martial arts have no future. In the afternoon, go to the pavilion of martial arts and choose martial arts that are truly compatible with you. As he said this, when Xingtian called out 7 names in a row, he also clearly explained why they couldn't practice family martial arts. Everyone was sincerely convinced, and full of admiration. Teacher was a teacher. After all, he was a god-reigning cultivator. His eyesight, knowledge, and experience were at an advanced level. He hit the nail on the head. Li Chenglong, there's no problem with your martial arts, but your foundation is lacking. Whether it's your fists or your body movements, they're too weak. They're far from the level of perfection, and even further away from perfection. When Xingtian said, I'll give you 3 days to spar with Xiang Bing, they were fighting each other all the time without a break in between. Either you comprehend the fist spirit and make up for your shortcomings, or you directly beat her out of the hidden dragon realm. Only then will this end. When Zuo heard this, his eyes flashed. The corner of his mouth revealed a very interesting and strange smile. It's 9 o'clock now. The opening ceremony is at 9:30. Familiarize yourself with the school in the afternoon. Classes will officially start in 3 days. Although there won't be classes in these 3 days. If anyone doesn't improve after 3 days, they'll also be kicked out. When Xingtian's teaching method could be said to be very special, or very different from the rest. It was very rude and very domineering, but everyone felt that it was very normal. In martial arts practice, too much pleasantness would only cause people to sink into gentleness and be powerless to improve. In the original school, even the most powerful genius had been beaten up countless times by the teacher. Including Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing. The siblings were also grateful. Thank you, teacher. No matter how harsh the scolding was, in the end, he still gave the best solution to Xiang Bing's heart disease. Xiang Bing's heart disease was caused by the battle with Li Chenglong. Whoever started the trouble should end it. Fighting with Li Chenglong was better than fighting with anyone else. However, Xiang Bing herself couldn't chase after Li Chenglong and start a fight. Chapter 383. The reason was simple. School had just started. What was the point of chasing after someone to fight? He could deal with you once, but after that, there would be no reason for him to do so. The outcome of the previous battle in the arena was already clear. What was the point of chasing after him so relentlessly? Wasn't it because the Xiang family couldn't afford to lose and had no sense of shame? Although Xiang Bing knew that fighting with Li Chenglong was the best way to heal her heart, she didn't dare to put it into action, because doing so would likely backfire. If she didn't do well, she would be expelled directly. Now, with Wen Xingtian's direct arrangement, it was exactly what she wanted. Li Chenglong felt wronged at this moment. His eyes widened and his face was full of grievance. Why? Me again? Why? I've already fought more than 20 battles today. Why do I have to fight with this woman again? What is this? Zuo stood up and said, Oh, I thought it was a big deal. Isn't it just a fight? Besides, who doesn't get beaten up in a fight between martial artists? Whether it's a life and death battle or an arena battle, who cares if you're a girl? If you still have tender feelings for the fairer sex in this kind of situation, you'll only die faster. A bunch of single dogs always have tender feelings for other people's wives. If he doesn't die, who will? People always say that men and women are equal. Why don't they say it here? Zuo waved at Li Chenglong. Don't worry about the swelling. It's a simple matter. You'll be scared after one round of beating. Maybe you'll still be scared after 3 rounds, but you'll get used to it after 30 rounds. You two decide how many rounds you want to fight first. Let's say the number first. The one with the most number wins. Come, let's bet. I bet that Li Chenglong will win. You can team up with 34 people to bully me. I don't care if you all bet on Xiangbing. School has just started, and as the class monitor, I'll just take it as giving money to my classmates. You don't have to feel embarrassed. Come and win my money. I said that I'm collecting money for myself, but I'm just saying. It's okay to say that I'm giving money away. The corners of Wen Xingtian's mouth twitched, and he felt his hands itch again. The first few sentences of this fellow were still somewhat decent, but the last part was clearly a new level of despicableness. How despicable! Xiang Chong and the others left with a look of disdain. You actually have the face to be the banker. This kind of obvious victory and defeat, they actually want to scam money? Although everyone who was able to come here was rich, but that I won't give you a single cent. Sure enough, amassing wealth was the second most important. He could even talk about amassing wealth at such a crucial moment. Simply. After that, everyone went to the start of term ceremony. 7 out of 8 vice principals were present, and the background music was very majestic and impassioned. He recounted the deeds of the Hidden Dragon High School's predecessors and the glorious achievements of the outstanding students. Then he began to encourage them. Zhuo Duo, on the other hand, had fallen asleep while standing below. He was sleeping soundly. It wasn't until the meeting was over that he was woken up by Li Chenglong's slap. Everyone went to collect their martial arts suits. Each person received a total of 10 sets from inside to outside, from top to bottom. Hidden Dragon High School wasn't stingy in this aspect at all, but the style of the suits was really retro. After putting it on, everyone's white clothes fluttered in the wind. The men were handsome and confident, and the women were valiant and heroic. Zhuo Duo and Li Chenglong didn't wear it, because the two of them still had to face challenges. Zhuo Duo, who was originally unchallenged, was now directly facing the siege of 6 people from Uehara Garrison High School. Li Chenglong and Xiangbing were fighting in a circle, punching and kicking each other, every punch hitting flesh. When Xiangbing was fighting with Li Chenglong, she was no longer as timid as before. She was completely unrestrained, and every move was powerful and heavy. She attacked with an almost suicidal attitude. I've lost face to you, so I'll get it back on you. Therefore, the atmosphere of Li Chenglong and Xiangbing's battle was even more intense than Zhuo 1 against 6. Only a dull thud like a drum could be heard. After a while, both of their faces were bruised and swollen, and they were beyond recognition. But even if Xiangbing had recovered and displayed her full strength, it was a pity that Li Chenglong had been beaten up by Zhuo Duo almost every day after the competition ended. Moreover, he had been training in close proximity with Zhuo Duo. So, in addition to his ability to withstand beatings, his cultivation had improved much faster than Xiangbing's. Now that they were fighting, Li Chenglong had a huge advantage. Both sides were riding on a tiger, and the leader didn't hold back. He grabbed Xiangbing's hair and mercilessly beat her up again until her head was bleeding and she couldn't get up. Only then did he win the match. Crazy woman. Li Chenglong touched his scalp with lingering fear. Luckily, I have a crew cut. Otherwise, I would have gone bald from this battle alone. 2 of you send Xiangbing into the nourishment cabin. Wen Xingtian didn't even blink. After 20 minutes, bring her out and continue the battle. Yes. When Li Chenglong heard about the nourishment cabin, he was instantly energized. Teacher, what about me? Can I also go into the nourishment cabin? You? You don't have to. What you need to do now is to carefully recall how many punches and kicks you shouldn't have endured in the battle just now. Your current cultivation is undoubtedly higher than Xiangbing's, but when it comes to punches and kicks, and the meticulous use of moves, you're still far from her. Xiangbing was defeated by you, and to a large extent she fell into the battle atmosphere that you're good at. Based on the way the 2 of you fought, where every punch hit the flesh and purely relied on your physical body to take it. Naturally, the one with the higher cultivation and stronger resistance would win, but when it comes to techniques, you're still not good enough. When Xingtian looked over, 6 people against 1 person, but they were still being beaten back by Zhuo Duo. Go and help him. Go and fight Zhuo Duo. I'll let you experience the other battle atmosphere." Li Chenglong was stunned. So, not only did I not get the treatment of entering the nourishment cabin, but I also have to fight with the boss. After a while, when Xingtian issued another order, "Everyone attack together and surround Zuoxiao Duo. Let me tell you, if you can't defeat Zuoxiao Duo today, everyone will have 10 credits deducted." Credits. When they heard these 2 words, the eyes of all the students instantly turned red. After a night of understanding, everyone finally understood how precious credits were. When they went out for training, an embryonic breathing realm star beast's inner core couldn't be exchanged for a single credit. Even if all the fur, teeth, inner core, and bones were added together, it still couldn't be exchanged for a single credit. A normal 1,000-year-old spiritual medicine could only be exchanged for a single credit with 10 stalks added together. Even if it was a very rare one, it was only worth a single credit. However, credits were spent very quickly. For example, a meal would cost quite a lot. 1 credit could buy 5 steamed buns, a dish, or even a bowl of soup. Not to mention medicinal pills and nourishment cabins. After the first month, going to the nourishment cabins for treatment of serious injuries also required credits. Firstly, the injuries had to be serious enough. Secondly, the credits had to be sufficient. 10 credits for 1 minute. Just imagine, it was deadly. The school had heaven, earth, black, and yellow level cultivation methods. Saber techniques, sword techniques, fist techniques, body techniques, and internal and external cultivation methods were all available. The yellow level martial arts techniques were very considerate and freely shared for free. However, from the black level onwards, 100 credits could only be rented for an hour to browse the secret manuals. Can't remember? Then give me another 100 credits to continue browsing. For the earth level, the starting point was 1,000 credits. For the heaven level martial arts, the starting point was 5,000 credits. Don't think that just because you paid the school fees and came here, you could casually enjoy everything for free. The truth of reality would make you doubt your life. The limit of credits would make it even harder for you to take a single step. Even in your dreams, it was so bleak. In the beginning, in order to attract Zuoxiao Duo and Li Chenglong to come to Hidden Dragon High School, the conditions offered were 1,000 credits for Zuoxiao Duo and 500 credits for Li Chenglong. Both of them felt that it was quite a lot. However, when they actually came to Hidden Dragon High School, they realized that they were playing with idiots. What could they do with this little amount of credits? In terms of difficulty, 1,000 credits was indeed not a small amount. However, when it came to currency, this little amount of credits could be spent in minutes. Now that they had just entered the school, everyone's hands were empty. Most of them didn't even have a single credit. Now they heard that if they couldn't win, they would have to deduct credits. How could their eyes not turn red? They really couldn't afford to lose face like this. After entering university, not only would they not earn a single credit, but they would also have to have 10 credits deducted. This was simply intolerable. Even if the uncle could tolerate it, the aunt could not tolerate it. More than 30 people looked at Zuoxiao Duo, the class monitor, as if they were looking at a shiny credit dispenser. It was like the big bad wolf had seen the Bai Tuesday wait. Bai Tu raised her hand and protested loudly, "Teacher, there should be a reward even if there is a punishment. Then if I win, what's the reward?" When Xingtian said indifferently, "In my place, there is no reward, only punishment. No matter how well you do in my place, it's just a matter of course. If you don't do well, then you will be punished. If you are defeated by more than 30 people, 50 credits will be deducted from you. I heard that you have admission sponsorship points. It's enough to be punished for a while. Now begin." More than 30 people pounced forward like hungry wolves. Zuoxiao's heart felt like it had eaten Chinese gold thread. Fuck, it can be played like this? If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have asked that question. Seeing Class 1 students pouncing on him, Zuoxiao Duo roared and took a big step forward. He waved his iron fists and laughed. "Let me show you how powerful this young master's iron fists are." With a loud roar, he was already surrounded by the crowd. Then punches and kicks rained down. Zuoxiao Duo dashed left and right. His gestures were powerful and heavy. He did not show any mercy, nor did he show any mercy. He used the star steps and dragon gate kick with all his might. Unfortunately, how could there be an ordinary person in the Hidden Dragon High School? Everyone's cultivation level here, even if slightly weaker than Li Chenglong's, was definitely not too far off. They rushed forward like a swarm of bees. Even if Zhuo Xiaoduo's strength was much higher than his peers, he was still alone. It was difficult for him to fight alone. Immediately, he was firmly suppressed by more than 30 people and was completely at a disadvantage. Chapter 384. Once Zhuo Xiaoduo fell into a predicament, it became increasingly difficult for him to turn the tables. He could only feel the heavy and ruthless blows falling on his body like raindrops. Due to a moment of carelessness, 2 bangs were heard and his eyes immediately turned black. This is too much. I'm going to use my killer move. Zhuo Xiaoduo roared and the starlight around him suddenly flickered. Zhuo Xiaoduo used all his strength to activate the star steps, dragon gate kick, and star plucking palm. He attacked continuously and immediately kicked a few people away. However, they immediately rushed back without fear of death. 10 credits. I won't give up no matter what. The battle became more and more intense. When Xingtian stood with his hands behind his back and shouted, "Go! Go again! Don't give him any chance to recover. Beat him to death." He suddenly turned around and appeared far away in a flash. He shouted in a deep voice, "I don't care after class, but if anyone dares to peep during my class, I'll gouge out your eyeballs one by one. Get lost." His roar was like rolling thunder that swept across the campus. A few senior students who came to peep were scared witless and ran away. He was not only the head teacher of Class 1, but also the head of the martial arts department. He was someone who would do what he said. As time passed, this round of chaotic battle had been over for a long time. Even Xiangbing came back. When she saw the mess, she could not help but be stunned on the spot. "You go too." Everyone worked together to fight Zhuo Xiaoduo. If you can't defeat Zhuo Xiaoduo, 10 credits will be deducted. When Xingtian ordered Xiangbing, Xiangbing was stunned for a moment before she rushed forward. As a direct descendant of Hidden Dragon High School, and the great-granddaughter of the first vice principal of Hidden Dragon High School, Xiangbing knew better than anyone else how hard it was to obtain credits from Hidden Dragon High School. Other than Zhuo Xiaoduo, 35 people from Class 1 surrounded Zhuo Xiaoduo and suppressed him together. Zhuo Xiaoduo had already been beaten to the point of desperation. Even if he didn't use any weapons, Zhuo Xiaoduo wouldn't be able to withstand such ferocious punches and kicks. With a loud shout, a scorching hot aura suddenly erupted. The 4 students immediately spat out blood and fell unconscious. Many of their bones were broken, and their injuries were not light. "Men, send him to the nutrition cabin. Come back and join the battle in 10 minutes. When Xingtian ordered without batting an eyelid. Yes. When Xingtian's assistant immediately called a few people to take the unconscious student away. Zhuo Xiaoduo activated the Blazing Sun Divine Art, and his combat strength increased exponentially. He had already sent 4 people flying. Just when he felt a little more relaxed, he was immediately pushed back by a stronger and more ferocious attack. Fuck. You guys actually think that credits are more important than our relationship? Zhuo Xiaoduo tried his best to fend them off. He was in a sorry state as he yelled, "Feelings my ass. This bastard has been acting like a bitch on the first day. I've been wanting to beat him up for a long time. Now that you have the opportunity, why don't you give it your all? Beat him up. Beat him up." More than 30 people shouted and fought fiercely. The more they fought, the braver they became. People kept flying out and were thrown into the nutrition cabin by Wen Xingtian. After 10 minutes of fierce fighting, the first batch of students had already rushed back and joined the battle again. When Xingtian looked at his watch, "You've been besieged for half an hour. Let's see how long you can last and how tenacious you can be." To Wen Xingtian's surprise, not only was Zhuo Xiaoduo tenacious, but his counterattack was also getting stronger and stronger. Ouch! Zhuo Xiaoduo let out a long howl and rushed into the sky with only a pair of underwear on his body. His clothes had already been torn to shreds. Then Meng Zhongjun and Xiangcheng followed closely behind. The 2 of them roared and each of them grabbed one of Zhuo Xiaoduo's thighs and dragged him up with all their might. Li Chenglong flew up and slammed into Zhuo Xiaoduo's chest like a cannonball. Pai Bao mustered all his strength and appeared behind Zhuo Xiaoduo in an instant, kicking his butt a dozen times. Ouch! Zuoxiao Duo had just shaken off Xiang Chong and Meng Zhongjun when he was once again surrounded by a sea of people. It's already been an hour. When Xingtian looked at his watch again, there was admiration and surprise in his eyes. This guy can still hold on? Whether it was his tenacity, perseverance, or fighting spirit, any one of them was worthy of praise. It'll be lunchtime in 5 minutes. If we still can't defeat Zuoxiao Duo, we'll take it that the rest of us have lost. When Xingtian said coldly, 35 people ganging up on one person and we still can't win. Shameful. Lousy. Inhumane. As soon as he finished speaking, the 35 people's joint attack became more and more explosive. In an instant, Zuoxiao's eyes, nose, ears, head, mouth, chest, shoulders, thighs, lower abdomen, and lower back were all hit. However, his 2 legs were like pillars that supported the heavens as he stood on the ground. As he fought with all his might, heat waves rolled all over his body like a small sun. The heat was still increasing bit by bit, causing everyone around him to feel suffocated. Xiang Chong and the rest were more and more impressed as they fought. He could actually hold on until now when 35 of them were fighting him alone. They really didn't know what the other party's body was made of. He had obviously taken more than 1,000 hits, but he was still so lively. Finally, the anxious Jia Kuang jumped up and used his own body as a weapon, forcefully crashing over. On the other side, Xiang Chong launched an extremely fierce attack, risking his life to exchange 3 punches with Zuoxiao Duo. He was defeated and rolled over. But Meng Zhongjun took advantage of the gap and kicked Zuoxiao's thigh more than 30 times with all his might. After being kicked so many times, Zuoxiao Duo finally lost his balance and staggered. Because of this, his lower body's defense also revealed a flaw. Li Chenglong let out a strange cry and slid across the ground. With a lightning-fast kick, he flew up. Upside-down golden hook. Hit the target. Ouch! Zuoxiao's face was twisted as he covered his crotch and clamped his legs with all his might, clamping down on Li Chenglong. With a muffled groan, Li Chenglong's eyes bulged and he almost peed out. However, Zuoxiao Duo had exposed his weakness in order to deal with Li Chenglong's surprise attack. The other students swarmed over and attacked him together, using their dirty hands. Puff 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 puff. The poor class rep was hit all over his body. Finally, he collapsed like a wooden pillar and fell to the ground. This battle was finally over. Zuoxiao Duo lost. He was beaten up badly and was naturally sent into the nutrition cabin. Li Chenglong was clamped by Zuoxiao's legs, breaking a few bones, and was also sent into the nutrition cabin. There were 4 or 5 students who were also breathing heavily. There were more than 10 whose bones were damaged to a certain extent. They were all sent into the nutrition cabin. The teacher who was in charge of the nutrition cabin was heartbroken. Master 1 was still the same as before when he started teaching again. No, he was even more brutal than before, much more brutal. He taught a total of 36 students. On the first day of teaching, the nutrition cabin was used more than 50 times. Some of them were sent in repeatedly. They were probably sent in after being beaten until they were crippled, then sent in again after they recovered. Ferocious, this was too ferocious. The students were all in the nutrition cabin. The only ones who were not in the nutrition cabin were the 9 people in front of Wen Xingtian. After this group of people left the battle, they all sat on the ground as if they had collapsed. They were panting heavily, unable to continue. I have to admit, this class rep is really awesome. At first, I thought he was just pretending to be awesome because he was the champion of the Longhu ranking competition. I didn't expect him to be so awesome. One of them was panting. I felt that every punch and kick I landed on his body was more like hitting the rock of astral souls. The strength of his bones, oh my god. It's too awesome. 35 students who entered the school at the same time fought against another one. They actually took turns to go into the nutrition cabin a few times before they managed to defeat him. Although he had won, the admiration in the eyes of the students could not be faked. It could not be faked. After this battle, Zuoxiao Duo had become the idol of many people. When Xingtian had his hands behind his back as he muttered to himself, the assistant was taking notes at the side with a notebook. Zuoxiao Duo in the first class battle fought 35 students alone. He beat more than 20 students until they could not continue fighting and could only enter the nutrition cabin. Among them, 4 of them entered the nutrition cabin twice. Inferring from this, Swishaoduo has the amazing ability to crush 35 students to death with his fists, which is far beyond his peers. Such tyrannical ability has far exceeded the limits of the innate realm, and even the limits of the embryonic breathing realm. This is already the combat power of the beginning stage of the inner elixir realm. Suggestion: it is not advisable to let this person practice and learn with other students. However, this battle has also firmly established the class monitor's position as the absolute core. Not only is it admiration, but it is also respect and worship. Not bad. Really not bad. Mr. Principal is indeed wise. He has a clear goal. When Xingtian's eyes were shining, only now did he truly confirm that the Mr. Principal was right. He had indeed caught a treasure in his hands. Such oppression should have been Zhuoxiaoduo's current bottom line. In other words, he only revealed his ultimate ability at the final stage. In the previous Dragon and Tiger List tournament, even in the final battle for the championship, no one could force him to reveal his ultimate ability. He is really a genius. No, I should say he is a demon, a complete demon. When Xingtian muttered, Swishaoduo came out of the nutrition cabin and was full of energy again. However, when the teacher in charge of the nutrition cabin inspected this nutrition cabin, he could not help but rub his eyes. Fuck, why are there so many strange things happening today? Could it be that he had seen a ghost? This was a brand new nutrition cabin that had just been taken out. It was obviously full of nutrition liquid, but at this moment at least 1/3 of it was gone. How many internal and external injuries did he sustain to consume so much energy liquid? The other one that had lost the most was only 1/5 of its original strength. Yes, it was still not right. Even if it was 1/5 less, it was still an extremely abnormal consumption. However, what was going on? Chapter 385. Outside. Li Chenglong's face was full of praise. Boss, how was my last kick? Nothing much. Tisk, if it wasn't for my kick, you wouldn't have been able to enter the nutrition cabin. Swollen expressed his dissatisfaction. Just you wait, do you think I won't remember that kick? Why did you come to remind me? Don't you know that the one who provokes first is cheap? Shda. Li Chenglong was speechless. Swishaoduo was the one who turned the tables. He thought he was asking for credit, but now it had turned into a feud. Zwa, I still want to be in close contact with you. I still want to train with you. Don't abandon me. Li Chenglong. A crisp voice rang out. It was Xiang Bing. Come, let's fight. For 3 consecutive days, Swishaoduo only participated in the battle on the first day. From the second day onwards, he didn't participate again. He just silently cultivated by himself. Without Swishaoduo, Li Chenglong was busy. On one hand, he had to deal with the invitations from his classmates. On the other hand, he was fighting with Xiang Bing almost every moment. Well, the main reason was that he had beaten up Xiang Bing. His strength was much stronger than Xiang Bing's. Moreover, the fist spirit that Wen Xingtian had mentioned was progressing. The gap between the two of them was getting bigger and bigger. This also caused the sect leader's reputation to become more and more famous. Catch a beauty and beat her to death during Li Chenglong's break. He kept asking Xiang Bing about the situation in the school. He asked about the situation in the school, the situation around the school, and the current situation in the whole of Fenghai City. He asked the right person to ask about these things. As the granddaughter of the first vice principal and the successor of one of the top 3 ancient martial arts families in Fenghai City, Xiang Bing was very familiar with these things. Although she was disfigured by Li Chenglong 7 to 8 times every day, Xiang Bing didn't hate Li Chenglong anymore. Instead, she patiently answered Li Chenglong's questions. As Li Chenglong learned more and more, the framework in his heart became clearer and clearer. However, after having a clearer understanding, he felt more and more complicated inside. Fenghai City was too big. As a big city with tens of millions of people, it was vast and densely populated. Needless to say, it was far from a small border city like Phoenix City. In addition, there were 3 famous Hidden Dragon high school schools here. It made Fenghai City bustle. However, with so many people, there were more things to do. The same went for conflicts and grudges. Fenghai City's gangs, families, and various forces were mixed with the dragons. Not to mention the Zhongyun Wang residence. a place of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The 8 Dynasties' ancient capital. Li Chenglong was lost in his thoughts. Not to mention other places, just in the Hidden Dragon High School, the power struggle had reached its climax. Vice Principal Xiang, who used to be the school's absolute upper echelon, had suffered that strange injury. Although he had a high level of martial arts and tyrannical power, he couldn't go out anymore. The vice principal of Hidden Dragon High School would stink when he went out. He couldn't even afford to lose face. What kind of reputation could he have left? So, your surname is Xiang. Vice Principal's surname is Xiang. Then you and Vice Principal Xiang are. Li Chenglong looked at Xiang Bing, who was beaten up by him. This cold beauty had always been known as an iceberg. However, ever since the first day of school, she had been sparring with Li Chenglong every day. Her nose would be broken once or twice every day, and disfigurement had already become a habit for her. Coupled with their interactions, at least in Li Chenglong's eyes, she wasn't as cold as the rumors made her out to be. The vice principal Xiang you're talking about is my great-grandfather. Xiang Bing looked at Li Chenglong strangely. She had thought that this idiot already knew. Now, it seemed that not only did he not know, he couldn't even guess it. What a pig's brain. I've rested enough. Let's fight again. Xiang Bing jumped up like a carp and got into a fighting stance. Actually, Xiang Bing's mental illness was cured in less than 2 days. However, it was fate that she was able to fight with Li Chenglong, who was second only to Zuoxiao Duo. According to the current class ranking, Xiang Bing wasn't qualified to challenge Li Chenglong. Following this, Xiang Bing's fighting style had returned to normal. She was even more valiant than before. This also made Li Chenglong come to a conclusion. This girl was purely asking for a beating. Because of this sudden realization, even if Xiang Bing's state had recovered, even if he knew that she was Vice Principal Xiang's great-granddaughter, Li Chenglong still wouldn't show mercy when they fought together. While the two were fighting, Xiang Chong walked over from the side with a bloody nose and a swollen face. His tall body was still tall and straight, but his face was swollen beyond recognition. It really ruined his image and ruined everything. Seeing Li Chenglong and his sister fighting hand to hand, the muscles on Xiang Chong's face twitched, and his eyes inexplicably showed a strange look. Still fighting. She watched as Li Chenglong mercilessly punched Xiang Bing's face, causing blood to spurt out from her nose. The outcome of the battle was already clear, but he still jumped up and kicked his younger sister's butt, sending her flying more than 20 meters away. Xiang Chong only had one word in his heart: convinced. This guy really deserves to be the leader of the Iron God sect. My sister is known as one of the 3 beauties in Fenghai City, but you actually beat her up like this. And you beat her up more than 10 times a day, without any scruples and without restraint. This was simply insane. It was breathtaking. This kind of man of steel was really worthy of a heartfelt thumbs up from any man. Instinctively, they would praise. Bro, you have a reason to be single your whole life. But what made Xiang Chong even more depressed was that, looking at this trend, this leader of the Iron God sect really wouldn't be single in the future. Was there a problem with his mother's education of his sister? School is over in 15 minutes. Xiang Chong urged. Hurry up and go to the nutrition cabin to recover. Get ready to go home. Xiang Bing snorted and said, I'm staying in the dormitory. I won't be going home for a while. Xiang Chong snorted. Great-grandfather's birthday is in a few days. Aren't you going back? This time Li Chenglong found a topic and said, Well, can I take the liberty to ask you something? Xiang Bing gasped and adjusted her nose that was beaten crooked by Li Chenglong. She said, What is it? Just say it and then continue. I can still beat you. Although she was beaten up by Li Chenglong every day, Xiang Bing felt that she really didn't hate Li Chenglong that much. It could even be said that she didn't hate him at all. Xiang Bing even found a reason for this. He was already the leader of the Iron God sect and had already paid the price for it. Wasn't it natural for him to beat women? It's said that Vice Principal Xiang once suffered a strange injury. Is this true? Li Chenglong asked very carefully. Xiang Bing and Xiang Chong both sighed. It's not something that can't be said. Great-grandfather was plotted against by the people of the Umno Alliance, and was splashed with the water of the River of Forgetfulness. Since then he has been staying at home all year round. It's been almost 20 years now. Li Chenglong's eyes lit up and said, "When Boss Sua and I were on our way to report to Feng Hai, we accidentally discovered a star spirit musk deer's cave. It was originally blocked by a huge meteorite, and it looked like it had been there for a long time. After the two of us worked together to dig through it, we obtained a stalk of vanilla orchid, but I don't know if this thing will be of any use." Xiang Bing and Xiang Chong's eyes suddenly lit up. An old cave of astral souls? Did you find a stalk of vanilla orchid of a certain age? Yes. Li Chenglong agreed very quickly. May I ask how many leaves of vanilla orchid are there? Xiang Chong's eyes lit up immediately. Xiang Bing's beautiful eyes were also. Cough cough, they could not be considered beautiful anymore. They were more like a panda's beautiful eyes that were swollen into a line. She looked at Li Chenglong anxiously. There was also a hint of worry in her eyes. If the stalk was not old enough, she would be happy for nothing again. Li Chenglong thought for a moment and said, "I think it has 9 leaves, and the stem is almost as thick as a corn grain. The lower half is already white, and the bottom of the stem is jade-like. Is it enough? 9 leaf? The stem is so thick? It's white? Jade-like?" Xiang Chong jumped up immediately. He said in disbelief, "Really? Are you telling the truth?" Only the heavens knew how much manpower and resources the Xiang clan had expended over the past 20 years to search for a stalk of vanilla orchid of a certain age. However, they could only find 6 or 7 leaves at most. It could only treat the symptoms and not the root cause. The Xiang clan had been searching for it since before the siblings were born. They had not stopped until now, but they still could not find it. Now Li Chenglong actually said he had it. This was a greater surprise than the heavens. Of course it's true. Li Chenglong nodded affirmatively. However, it's in Zhua's spatial ring now. Won't it be fine once we confirm the situation later? Yes. Xiang Chong was even more excited now. The class monitor cultivates the Flaming Sun Sutra. Not only can the pure yang power of this cultivation method maintain the growth of the vanilla orchid, but it can even benefit the vanilla orchid. This is amazing. Xiang Bing immediately jumped up. Where's the class monitor? Let's go find him now. Li Chenglong coughed and smiled bitterly. Well, you have to be mentally prepared. Our class monitor said that the aspect is the most important, wealth is the second, and cultivation is the last. It's not just for show. That's not a problem. Xiang Chong waved his hand. Don't worry. No matter the price, we're willing to pay. Cough cough. Li Chenglong hesitated for a moment and said, "Then let's go there now and check the condition of the vanilla orchid." Zhuo Duo had already returned to the villa. For the past 3 days, classes had not officially started. As a result, it was very boring for him to stay in the school. Everyone was fighting in full swing. However, no one showed any interest in Zhuo Duo. Ever since that day when he had single-handedly taken on 35 players, they had started worshipping him. No one came to challenge him anymore. This situation made Master Zhuo very lonely. Walking in the villa's courtyard, he thought about where he could practice his hammering skills. However, when he thought about his current situation, he could not help but recite a poem. A pair of iron fists broke 1,000 mountains, a treasured sword hung at my waist, breaking through the hidden draga. Only then did I know that it's lonely at the top. Looking for monthly votes, recommendation votes, subscriptions. Thank you. Chapter 386. After Zhuo Duo finished reciting the poem, he silently recited it twice and finally exclaimed, "What a good poem. I'm just a poet who was held back by martial arts. Being invincible is such a lonely thing." At this moment, Zhuo's expression was very lonely. With his hands behind his back, his face was bleak as he looked in the direction of the setting sun. He was like an invincible, lonely old swordsman who stood at the peak of the world, overlooking the world. It was lonely at the top. There were countless heroes in the world, but none of them were a match for his sword. The night breeze blew and Zhuo's sleeves fluttered in the wind. A sense of desolation was actually imagined by himself. He could not help but look up to the sky and sigh, "Alas, the sword is empty and sharp, the heroes are helpless. In this world, who is worthy of me pointing my sword? I'm invincible in my life. I'm the only one who can defeat all the astral souls. I Zhuo Duo have finally reached this step. Cough 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 cough. Cough cough cough. Cough cough. A heart-wrenching cough sounded behind him. It seemed like someone was suffering from tuberculosis and couldn't stop coughing. Zhuo Duo turned around and was shocked. Principal? Yi Chongqing clutched his chest and coughed until the sky turned dark. It was heart-wrenching. Seeing that Zhuo Duo had left early today, Yi Chongqing couldn't help but want to see how this legendary genius was like after class. He was quite curious. He wanted to secretly take a look, so he went back. In the end, after watching for a while, he heard this guy shamelessly mumbling to himself. The poor old man choked when he heard it. In this world there was actually such a shameless person. A Shawanate was actually lamenting about being invincible and being lonely at the top. He even composed a poem about it. Even with Yi Chongqing's knowledge and experience, he couldn't imagine how shameless this guy was. The old principal was already having problems with his heart. This choking almost sent him away. Principal, why are you here? Zhuo Duo hurried over and very considerately helped Yi Chongqing massage his back. His face was innocent, green and cute. He was really harmless, well-behaved and honest. Looking at this honest, lovable, adorable, fearful, and handsome face that was filled with caution and cautiousness, Yi Chongqing coughed even harder. Cough 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 cough. This is going to cost me my life. My heart pulse is not good. But I'm very curious. How did you change from such an arrogant attitude to such an expression? This face-changing technique was truly impressive. It was not inferior to any of the famous best actors and best actresses in this world. In fact, it was even better than them. Zhuo Duo quickly took out a chair from his spatial ring and carefully helped Yi Chongqing sit down. However, in his heart he was puzzled. Wasn't it said that the principal of Hidden Dragon High School was a top-notch expert in the world? How could he cough like this? He looked like an old man who didn't have many days left to live. How strange. Cough cough. Zhuo Duo. Yi Chongqing finally stopped coughing. He trembled as he wiped his mouth. He looked at the guy in front of him with a helpless expression. This old life of mine I've been fighting for more than 1,000 years, and no one has been able to take it away. Today it was almost taken away by you. As the saying goes, a sharp tongue is like a knife. Zhuo Duo said in fear and trepidation. This student doesn't dare. Principal, you're in the prime of your life. You'll live forever. Yi Chongqing subconsciously rolled his eyes again. Not only was this kid good at acting, but he was also very slippery and slippery. Look at this ass-kissing one after another. He originally wanted to sneak a peek, but in the end he ended up sitting here. Since it was already like this, there was no harm in directly interacting with him. Xiaoduo, are you satisfied with this house? Yi Chongqing said with a smile as he stroked his beard. It's really a good place to live. It's spacious, bright, and wonderful. Zhuo face was full of excitement. This is the first time I've lived in such a big house. Li Chenglong and I live on one floor each, and there are 3 toilets on each floor. It's really too extravagant. I poop in one, pee in another, and haven't even thought of what to do with the third. Yi Chongqing almost coughed because of this magnificent declaration. What kind of person was this kid? What kind of weird brain circuit did he have to be able to say something like this? Is there anything you're not satisfied with? Yi Chongqing looked at this guy from the corner of his eyes. They were both old fogies. Zhuo Duo mentioned the toilets but didn't mention anything else, so there must be something that this kid didn't like. There are some things I'm not satisfied with. Zhuo Duo carefully observed the face of the principal of Hidden Dragon High School in front of him. It wasn't the kind of square face that was full of righteousness. Instead, it was a thin face with a sharp chin and double eyelids. He looked like an old scholar? An old scholar? That's probably how it felt. Sun was elegant, with long eyebrows fluttering in the wind. His complexion was fair, his eyes were gentle, his hair was white, and he had 3 strands of gray beard. It wasn't long, but it gave people the feeling that he was elegant and refined. His face was square and his eyes were clear. Looking at his complexion, he was very decent. Using the qi reading technique to look at him, he was also full of vigor. To sum it up, the person in front of him was at least not a bad person. Zhuo Duo was still cautious. He chuckled and said, I didn't expect to come to school with such good conditions. A standalone villa, haha, is too good. Principal, I heard this house belongs to your family? Yi Chongqing narrowed his eyes and looked at this guy. He smiled and nodded. It's my private property. Principal, your current residence shouldn't be far from here, right? Swishaoduo's face didn't have any ulterior motives. It's indeed not far. It's just next door. Yi Chongqing felt strange and a little amused, but he couldn't help but perk up. He had a clear feeling. Swishaoduo, this child had too many layers of disguises on the outside. Everything that was revealed on the surface was probably his protective layer. Now that he mentioned the house in a roundabout way, it was obvious that he was trying to find out why he rented the house to him and what his intentions were. Yi Chongqing guessed that this guy would beat around the bush for a long time, but he wasn't in the mood to waste time with him. He simply went straight to the point. Your old principal, He Yuanyue, called me once and specifically told me about you. Old principal? Grandma He? Are you old friends with her? Swishaoduo's face suddenly became serious, and he couldn't help but straighten his body. Yi Chongqing's eyes were filled with envy. He said softly, and she specifically sent me an email about you. Do you want to read it? Swishaoduo's face showed reluctance and admiration. He said softly, can I read it? Sure. Yi Chongqing took out his phone and fiddled with it for a while. Then, he handed the phone over and said, here. Swishaoduo took it and read it. There was an email in it. The sender was He Yuanyue, and the recipient was Yi Chongqing. At their age and status, they already disdained to use names other than their real names, let alone those online names. Swishaoduo subconsciously thought of his own online name. He couldn't help but feel ashamed, and his face flushed. The content of the email was very simple. He Yuanyue briefly introduced Swishaoduo's situation and expressed her intention to invite Swishaoduo to come to Hidden Dragon. Swishaoduo could tell at a glance that the email was indeed written by He Yuanyue herself, because there were two things mentioned in the letter. The first was the first 2 touches of the 3 touches and 5 reviews. He Yuanyue said, this child is gifted by the heavens, his heart is still pure and innocent. He does as he pleases, often exceeding the norm, defying common sense. The heavenly net has rated him as a heretical path, and I think he cannot enter the pavilion. If he can enter the pavilion, please consider it carefully, and do not ruin my child's future. The second thing was vague. Even Swishaoduo himself. Swishaoduo is suspected to be the heir of the dragon bloodline. He is young and ignorant and can't dance. If he goes straight to Shangjing, he might be harmed by the dragons. The best place to go is Hidden Dragon. It's only appropriate when he's ready to jump into the abyss. I take the liberty to invite you, but I'm afraid. I have no selfish motives. I only want the common people's livelihood. I hope Headmaster Ye's eyes will sweep through the hazy sky. The blue sky is clear, and the red sun is high. Although Yuanyue's body has passed away, she will be remembered by the 9 springs. He Yuanyue paid her respects. Looking at the email, Swishaoduo's hands couldn't help but tremble. His eyes turned red. Grandma He, Swishaoduo murmured. In front of him, He Yuanyue's kind and warm smile seemed to appear again. She was still looking at him kindly, as if she was saying to him, Shaoduo, you have to work hard. Grandma He, Swishaoduo's voice was choked with sobs. Yi Chongqing smiled and said, do you believe me now? Swishaoduo held the phone tightly in his arms. He raised his head and asked, Headmaster, can I take a picture of this email as a souvenir? Yi Chongqing smiled and nodded. Yes, you can, but you have to think carefully. The content of this email is related to your safety. You can't take it lightly. Be careful not to leak it. Swishaoduo took out his phone, aimed it at the email and took a few photos. He stored them carefully in his phone. Thank you, Headmaster. I have no more doubts about you, Swishaoduo said solemnly. Yi Chongqing nodded with satisfaction. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. As a person, to be able to do what He Yuanyue did and gain the trust of the students, it was obvious that she was a great person. Even a person like Swishaoduo was so convinced it could be seen that he was a master. What a pity. Yi Chongqing could tell at a glance that even if he was the headmaster of the Hidden Dragon University, and a person of high status in the entire Yinwu country, He didn't have much weight in Zhuoxiaoduo's heart. The respect on the surface didn't mean anything. However, He Yuanyue's weight in Zhuoxiaoduo's heart was as heavy as a mountain. It was enough to suppress everything. This was the greatest thing about He Yuanyue. Yi Chongqing sighed in his heart. He smiled and said, "Then you can tell me directly now. Is there anything wrong with the place you're living in? Or is there something you're unhappy about?" Zhuoxiaoduo nodded and said, "Actually, it's quite good. It's just that I can't practice." "Can't practice?" Yi Chongqing suddenly understood something. Suddenly, he was somewhat aghast. "You mean, your true weapon, your strongest weapon, is actually not a sword? It's something else?" "That I have to say that the temperature in the office is 33 degrees. I'm completely steaming in sweat. After writing a chapter, the chair under my butt feels like it peed." Chapter 387. With Yi Chongqing's self-restraint and knowledge, he shouldn't have revealed such an expression of shock. However, when he thought about how Zhuoxiaoduo had been fighting all the way, he had revealed one trump card after another. After this one, he actually had another trump card. Even after the Dragon and Tiger ranking tournament, he still had another trump card. Even with his temperament, he still felt that it was inconceivable. From the very beginning, the Iron Fist Prince was known for his fists. Then when the Iron Fist Prince couldn't handle it anymore, he revealed a trump card hidden weapon. Moreover, the way he used the hidden weapon was exquisite and the angle was tricky. It was even better than the so-called hidden weapon experts. When the hidden weapon was also restrained, he revealed another trump card, the Star Steps, a kick to the crotch. No, what kind of leg was that? What kind of dragon or what kind of leg was that? When even a kick to the crotch was not enough to defeat the enemy, he revealed the name of the divine sword. The sharpness and ingenuity of his sword techniques were universally praised. Then when he was forced to use the sword, he unexpectedly revealed the Flaming Sun scriptures. Even now, Yi Chongqing still couldn't forget the strong visual impact of that fiery red ball exploding out of the frost during the live broadcast that day. At that moment, Yi Chongqing's heart almost flew out with it. There was only one thought in his mind. This student the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts Academy wants him. Definitely wants him. In the final battle, when he sparred with Zhou Yunqing's attainments in swordsmanship were so profound that it was shocking. From start to finish, Zhou Yunqing had executed at least a dozen different types of swordsmanship, and every single one of them had been mastered by this kid. At least from Yi Chongqing's point of view, Zhuoxiaoduo's trump card should be the sword. This kid's mastery of the sword had already reached the realm of being able to use it as he pleased. The only thing he lacked was the level of cultivation, the level of strength, and the fusion of strength and technique. But now there was suddenly a person who had nowhere to practice. Sword, hidden weapon, footwork. What kind of move, what kind of technique couldn't be practiced in this courtyard? This place was 3,000 square meters. That was the only explanation, or perhaps it was another truth. Zhuoxiaoduo had another trump card that was even more handy than swordsmanship. Moreover, it was a trump card that he could not let others know about. Once he used it, he had to kill his enemies and kill them all. Yi Chongqing was horrified by this sudden thought. This Zhuoxiaoduo had too many hidden cards up his sleeves. So many of them were beyond one's imagination, and some were even insane. Even after so many life and death battles in the Dragon and Tiger ranking tournament, he still wasn't able to force out all of his trump cards. According to the kid's information, he was only 17 years old. He was still 2 months away from 18. Yi Chongqing took a deep breath. His expression was solemn as he slowly muttered to himself, "Can't cultivate. Can't cultivate." It was as if he had encountered an extremely difficult and unresolvable matter. His expression was extremely grave. After a long time he said softly, "The Flaming Sun scriptures. Who taught you?" Actually, there was only one answer to this question in the entire continent. However, Yi Chongqing still asked this question. He needed a definite and direct answer. Zhuoxiaoduo blinked and said, "My Uncle Nan taught me." Uncle Nan. Cough, cough, cough. Yi Chongqing coughed. Yi Chongqing wouldn't have been surprised if he had called him Commander Nan or Chief Nan. But when he called him Uncle Nan, Yi Chongqing couldn't help but cough again. This form of address was too obvious. It directly showed the closeness of their relationship. It was also this Uncle Nan that dispelled Yi Chongqing's worries. I can even help you deal with the hidden training grounds. Yi Chongqing seemed to have made an important decision. He looked sharply at Zhou Xiaoduo and said, but I need to know what kind of secret technique you're going to practice. As he spoke, Yi Chongqing waved his hand. Zhou Xiaoduo only felt his vision suddenly darken and then brighten. When he focused his eyes and looked around, he found himself in an unfamiliar place. It was an extremely large space, but it was completely desolate. He felt as if he had suddenly arrived at a vast and uninhabited place. There was no wind, no clouds, no stars, and no moon. All he could see was a faint light. Fortunately, Yi Chongqing was still standing in front of Zhou Xiaoduo. Zhou Xiaoduo said, in this place other than me, no one else can see what you don't want others to know. Now let me see your concealment methods. Zhou Xiaoduo fell into a short silence. He was considering whether he could trust Yi Chongqing now. But when he thought of He Yuanyue's email, Zhou Xiaoduo immediately dispelled his doubts. If he was worthy of He Yuanyue's trust, then he must be worthy of his trust. What I want to practice is this. Zhou Xiaoduo waved his hand and 2 sledgehammers appeared in his hands. The 99 kitty hammer. When he took out a pair of sledgehammers that were half the size of a water tank, the visual impact on Yi Chongqing was huge. Almost in the blink of an eye, the 2 sledgehammers had already separated him from Zhou Xiaoduo. With just a glance, Yi Chongqing's expression changed. How heavy are these 2 guys? Yi Chongqing asked cautiously. 9,999 jin for one. Zhou Xiaoduo said. So heavy? Yi Chongqing blurted out in shock. If they were ordinary metals, even if they were this big, they wouldn't be so heavy. He reached out and took one of the sledgehammers. Even though he was on guard, he still felt the weight in his hand. But at his level of strength, under the premise that he was prepared, he didn't care about the weight of 5,000 kilograms. He fiddled with it casually, turning it in a circle in his hand. After a moment of contemplation, he turned it 2 more times. Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock. This is 1,000 illusion gold? And heavenly witch copper? He looked it up and down carefully, then tapped the sledgehammer's surface with his finger. He felt that something was wrong, so he tapped it again. Finally, his expression changed. The sledgehammer's surface is indestructible iron? Zhou Xiaoduo couldn't help but admire him. Principal, you're really knowledgeable and have a good memory. Wu Taijiang and Zhou Chonglu had both said that after these materials were disguised, very few people on the continent could recognize them. But now Yi Chongqing had recognized them. Yi Chongqing looked at Zhou Xiaoduo with a complicated gaze. He said softly, in the entire continent, there are no more than 10 people who can take out so much 1,000 illusion gold at once. However, to my knowledge, there is only one person in the world who can fuse the 1,000 illusion gold, the heavenly witch copper, and the indestructible iron together so seamlessly. Yi Chongqing's eyes were serious. He floated up and said calmly, it's fate that brought us together. Now use all your strength and this pair of sledgehammers to attack me. Zhou Xiaoduo replied, okay. He hadn't practiced for a few days, so his hands were itching. Of course, the most important thing was that Zhou Xiaoduo knew that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't do anything to the principal in front of him. Although the principal looked like an old pedant, he was definitely an earth-shattering expert. Zhou Xiaoduo really didn't have any scruples. He was just trying out his moves. If that's the case, I won't hold back, principal. Zhou Xiaoduo waved his hands and 2 sledgehammers appeared in his hands. He looked like a completely different person from before. Under Yi Chongqing's surprised gaze, Zhou Xiaoduo took the sledgehammers and retreated quietly. He floated about 3 meters away. The sledgehammer in his left hand pointed to the sky and the sledgehammer in his right hand pointed to the ground. He struck a strange pose. Then the sledgehammer in his right hand suddenly made a whooshing sound and smashed down like a mountain. The sledgehammer in his left hand followed closely behind like a whirlwind. The sledgehammers followed closely one after the other. Before the sledgehammers landed, a strong gust of wind blew and its power increased by several times. Yi Chongqing's pupils shrank. His body suddenly floated in the air and he didn't dodge. He lightly patted the sledgehammer's head with his palm. This collision wasn't fake, but there wasn't much noise. There was only a soft bang and the momentum of the sledgehammer in his right hand was extinguished. Yi Changqing had shown his amazing strength from the start of the fight. The sledgehammer had always been the heaviest weapon among the heavy weapons. It was the best choice to defeat 10 people with brute force. Even other types of heavy weapons couldn't compete with it head-on. Not to mention facing it head-on with bare hands. It was hard to imagine how one could eliminate the sledgehammer's power with one palm. But Principal Yi did it, and he did it so easily. However, Swishaoduo's hammering skills were not limited to this. The moment the huge force of the right hammer was dissipated by Principal Yi's palm, there was still a follow-up. The hammer that seemed to have lost its momentum suddenly spun and shook rapidly. It actually produced a strange force of its own. Together with the left hammer that arrived a moment later, the two hammers joined forces and crashed down. Boom boom boom. Yi Changqing took 36 sledgehammers in a row. Each strike used a different force to interfere with Swishaoduo's sledgehammers. But no matter how ingenious Principal Yi's moves were, Swishaoduo was always able to borrow the force to make the sledgehammers fall faster, and in a whirlwind manner. After 36 sledgehammers, Swishaoduo's body floated in the air like a huge whirlwind. It was the kind of scorching whirlwind. The violent sledgehammer technique combined with the power of the Flaming Sun Sutra was fully unleashed by Swishaoduo for the first time without holding back. The wind whistled like a ghost's laughter. It was obvious that there was only one person swinging the sledgehammer, but there was a fierce momentum as if thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers were charging at the same time. If there was a word to describe it, it would probably be insufferably arrogant. Swishaoduo only felt satisfied. It was too satisfying. Let's stop here. Yi Changqing's body flew out with a whoosh. Swishaoduo was having a good time. His body was tossing and turning in the air due to the strong inertia. Under this kind of movement, he did not need to use much strength and was able to swing the sledgehammer at will. But because of this principle, I can't stop. In the air, the sledgehammer rolled and Swishaoduo spun like a top, fighting fiercely with the air. He helplessly asked for help. You got me up just like that and then left? You don't care? What should I do? Principal, you're too much of a scumbag. Chapter 388. This little bastard. Yi Changqing smiled helplessly. Suddenly he flashed forward and grabbed one of the big hammers with each of his hands, producing an unimaginably strong suction force. No matter how Swishaoduo tried to move, the two hammers were still firmly held in Yi Changqing's hands, unable to escape. Just like that, he controlled Swishaoduo's inertia and made it spin for a total of 10 rounds before finally stopping. Swishaoduo held his shoulder and said with a pained expression, "It's too damn heavy." Yi Changqing was speechless for a while. What a weirdo. A high-level innate realm practitioner using heavy weapons that even the primordial elixir realm practitioners might not be able to use, yet he said that it was too heavy in the end. Then, he took a closer look and realized that his shoulder was indeed a little swollen. Yi Changqing was speechless about this fact. When this brat forged the two hammers just now, he definitely couldn't lift them. However, the combat power that Swishaoduo could unleash now shocked Yi Changqing. According to Yi Changqing's judgment, Swishaoduo's first hammer could probably kill a beginning-level embryonic breathing realm practitioner, but that was about it. However, the last hammer, even if it was an ordinary nascent soul transformation realm practitioner, the ordinary here referred to those who had broken through all the way to the beginning-level nascent soul transformation realm practitioners without experiencing any true vitality agitation or suppression. Most likely, they wouldn't be able to take it. Even if they used weapons, there was still a high chance that they wouldn't be able to take it. Swishaoduo's current cultivation realm was only at the high-level innate realm, not even at the pinnacle of the innate realm, half a step into the embryonic breathing realm. Even though Yi Changqing had lived for so long, this was the first time he had seen such a freak. This was truly a case of absolute strength defeating all martial arts. A pure suppression of strength. It was a way of fighting that was so overbearing that it was completely unreasonable. Not bad at all. Yi Changqing sighed softly. His sigh was mixed with an indescribable regret. This brat was really too outstanding and too freakish. But because of this, his original plan was doomed to fail. Minister Nan had already given Swishaoduo the Flaming Sun Sutra. How could he allow Zhuo Duo to take another person as his master? There was no need to even think about it. Elder Nan gave him the cultivation technique, Wu Taijiang forged the hammer, and there was also the sword that was claimed to be given by Marshal Dongfang. Yi Chongqing felt like 10,000 divine beasts were galloping in his heart. What the fuck? Are these guys trying to suppress me? What a pity. What a pity. But this child. What was his background? The old principal of Phoenix City's second high school, He Yuanyue, had repeatedly said that this kid did not have anyone behind him, and his family background was even more ordinary. His father was a small businessman, and his mother was a part-time housewife in finance. Now Yi Chongqing was skeptical of this statement. If that was the case, then where did he get these opportunities from? How could he gain the favor of so many great figures? This wasn't right. Just because he was a genius? However, there were so many geniuses in this continent. Why didn't the other geniuses receive such treatment? Yi Chongqing wanted to ask. But after thinking for a while, he did not dare to ask. Because Wuxiao's surname was too big. It was so big that he did not dare to ask about it. If it was just a simple surname, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, if one combined the Southern Chief's Flaming Sun Manual, Wu Tiejiang's hammer, and Great General Dongfang's sword, the significance of this surname would be a little scary. It would be fine if it was not, but if he asked if it was really what he imagined, then it would be tantamount to taking a huge trouble into his arms. The kind of trouble that could peel off his skin if he scratched it. He could not even push it away. I won't ask. I don't know anything. I'll just treat Zhuo Duo as an ordinary student, okay? If anything happens, you can't blame me. Who asked you to not tell me earlier? If you didn't tell me, how would I know? I would only know if you told me. Who asked you to not tell me earlier? Zhuo Duo, your strength is really very good. I'm very happy. Yi Chongqing smiled with relief and said, in that case, this thing is not in vain to give it to you. Put away the hammer. Zhuo Duo had just put away the hammer when he felt his vision blur, and he was back on the grass in front of the villa. Yi Chongqing was still sitting on the chair in front of him, as if he had not moved at all. Then Yi Chongqing took out a palm-sized black thing from his arms. It looked like an iron tower. At first glance, the workmanship was very rough. There were some bumps on the surface. In short, it was not very exquisite. Ever since I got my hands on this thing, I've never stopped using it. It was not until I broke through a new realm that I. But before I give this thing to you, I hope you can promise me one thing. Yi Chongqing said very reluctantly. What kind of treasure is this? Zhuo Duo was a little disgusted by this thing. The reason was simple and crude. It was too ugly. Well, this was probably one of Zhuo Duo's weaknesses. He liked beautiful things very much, but he would have an inexplicable unfriendly impression of those ugly things. Of course, most people had this kind of feeling. The first impression was always very important. This thing. Back then, all the space masters on the continent gathered together. Many of the top space scientists were also studying the possibility of the fusion of time and space. Yi Chongqing said lightly, if it succeeds, it is possible to create a space container that is compatible with the time attribute. As the name suggests, this kind of space is fundamentally different from space tools. It has space and a different flow of time compared to the outside world. It can be 1/10, 1/30, or even more. Do you understand? If this research is successful, the cultivators who enter this space to cultivate for a month will only have one day in the real world outside. And this kind of whimsical idea was inspired by those who wrote novels back then. Too many novels have mentioned that the spirit herbs cultivated in a certain grotto heaven have already grown into 1,000-year-old spirit herbs in the grotto heaven after a year on the outside. And this time the research is in this direction. This research lasted for 75 years. Many respected old professors and researchers died of old age in the research base. Countless people contributed a lot to this project almost at all costs. This is because if this research is successful, it will bring uncountable benefits to the cultivation of talents and the continent's reserves. But just when the research was about to succeed, the Umno Alliance's Great Witch Dan Kong suddenly tore the space and attacked the research base. Great Witch Dan Kong can be said to be the person who has the deepest and most profound understanding of the space law in the whole world. The entire research base was razed to the ground in just a few seconds. Countless powerhouses were annihilated in this catastrophe. Most of the results of the research were directly destroyed. Only a few space masters risked their lives to protect a few semi-finished products. They used their own bodies to protect them and allowed their bodies to be shattered by Grand Magus Dan Kong. However, they used all their strength to protect those semi-finished products. In the end, they used their lives to save a few small towers. As for the specific number, no one knows. That year, the whole Astral Souls continent was in an uproar. In a rage, the four marshals led 50 million troops and pressed the Umno Alliance's border. The furious King Zwilu and his wife and the Heavenly King of the Right attacked aggressively and chased after Great Witch Dan Kong at all costs. They traveled 7 million miles and in the end, Great Witch Dan Kong was seriously injured and on the verge of death. He had no choice but to hide in the Heavenly Witch City. The two Heavenly Kings were still unwilling to give up. They joined forces to attack the Umno Alliance's continent and destroyed the Umno Alliance's Heavenly Witch City. After that, the 12 great witches of the other side fought back together. After a fierce battle, both sides were injured. The two Heavenly Kings had no choice but to retreat with serious injuries. After that battle, the Umno Alliance's strength was greatly damaged. Great Witch Dan Kong was still seriously injured and had not recovered. The space powerhouses in the Astral Souls continent were all killed. The follow-up research could no longer be carried out. Those semi-finished products became the only ones. In fact, although the real effect of these semi-finished products achieved the integration of space and time, the real effect was not ideal. The best effect was only 3 days inside and 1 day outside. The rest were just a stable space without the enhancement of the flow of time. Yi Chongqing looked at the small pagoda in his hand and said softly, "This small pagoda in my hand is one of the semi-finished products from back then. Back then, my grandfather was also one of the researchers. He also died in that attack." The semi-finished small towers that were preserved had a common name, the Annihilation Tower. As long as Great Witch Dan Kong is alive, this hatred will last forever. This one in my hand is called the Annihilation Tower number 7. Yi Chongqing sighed softly. Strictly speaking, this tower is not very useful because it is just a relatively stable space. Although there is air, there is no spiritual energy and it has nothing to do with time. At most, it is just a quiet place. It can even be said that it is a large storage space that can accommodate living things. If you want to cultivate in here, you have to bring your own jade of astral souls or spiritual medicine in here. You can't even break through in here because you need the spiritual energy tied between heaven and earth. But this is still a treasure that is worth cherishing. Because on top of it there is the blood of all the space powerhouses and space scientists in the continent. It is also the proof of the blood feud between the Astral Souls continent and the Umno Alliance. Yi Chongqing's eyes were complicated. He gently stroked the Annihilation Tower and finally reached out his hand. "All this time I thought the same as you. When I wanted to calm down and study techniques, I would enter this Annihilation Tower. But now I don't need it anymore. Today is the 3rd watch. I have to accompany my wife to my mother-in-law's house. Tomorrow I will try my best to make up for it. I beg for monthly votes." Chapter 389. Yi Chongqing smiled and said, "As long as you use your divine thoughts to communicate with the Tower of Void Destruction, you can enter it to practice and hone your skills. But you have to take note that you can't practice for more than 3 days at a time, because there is no spiritual energy to replenish inside. It will do more harm than good if you consume too much of your spiritual energy. I believe you understand this. This treasure you're giving it to me." Zhuo was so surprised that his heart was about to explode. Perhaps this small tower was useless to Yi Chongqing, but to Zhuo it was extremely useful. The secret hammering technique was Zhuo's strongest and most powerful trump card, because his real trump card was not to be known to others. In the hands of others, this tower might just be a large storage space and meditation place. But to Zhuo with this tower, Zhuo was like a tiger that had grown wings. "Here you are," Yi Chongqing faintly said. "Your strength has already reached the standard for me to give you this pagoda. However, in this semester's final exam, If you don't make great progress and don't meet my expectations, I will take back this pagoda. Can you agree to this condition? Zhuo beamed with joy and quickly took the tower. He nodded like a chicken pecking rice and said, Principal, don't worry. I'm willing to accept your test anytime and anywhere. You're welcome to come again. As he spoke, he put the tower into his space ring as if it was a treasure. It was as if he was afraid that Yi Chongqing would take the tower back in the next moment. Yi Chongqing was a little unhappy in his heart. Why did this brat speak at such a critical moment? What kind of speech was this? What kind of tiger-like speech was this? It was a great degradation. Was he that kind of person? Ba Zhuo, what kind of person did you think you were? But Zhuo's heart was filled with ecstasy. This was great. With this, there was nothing to be afraid of. Even when they were practicing with Zhuoxiaonian in Phoenix City, the siblings had to be sneaky. It was very difficult for them to enjoy themselves to the fullest. The most enjoyable time they had was the night when the Phoenix vein rushed to the soul. But now he could enjoy it every day. Yi Chongqing smiled and said, Your aptitude isn't bad, and your luck is good as well. You must. Before it's your turn to go on stage, you must completely solidify your foundation. You don't have to worry about anything else. He gazed into the distance and said indifferently, There's no need to care. Yes, Principal. Zhuo said gratefully. It was rare for Zhuo to treat someone with such an attitude. The previous one was He Yuanyue, followed by Qin Fangyang and Hu Ruoyan. Yi Chongqing was the fourth. Moreover, in terms of time, he was the fastest person to receive this gratitude. Yi Chongqing said indifferently, I'm giving you the Tower of Annihilation, not only for the end-of-term test. In the future, if you can really reach that step, kill Dan Kong for me. For those heroes who couldn't rest in peace back then. Kill Dan Kong. Zhuo said with an unprecedented seriousness, Principal, don't worry. As long as I have the hope of reaching that step, I will definitely crush Dan Kong with my hammer. Good. Yi Chongqing smiled with relief. Thinking about it, it was also unbelievable. Zhuo, this guy before he came, he had already given him a villa. Now that he was here, he came to take a look out of curiosity, and he actually gave him the Tower of Annihilation. Could it be that this little guy had the property of being broke? Thinking of this, Principal Yi suddenly remembered that when Xingqian had complained to him that Zhuo claimed to be good at three things. Fortune-telling was the best, wealth-gathering was the second, and cultivation was the last. He couldn't help but feel amazed. Fortune-telling was the best? It was still unknown, but wealth-gathering was the second best. It really seemed to be the case. Yi Chongqing suddenly coughed, and his face gradually turned pale. Principal, your physiognomy is not very good. In accordance with the principle of reciprocity, the principal gave him what he needed most. Zhuo felt that he should return the favor. Oh! Yi Chongqing looked at him amused. Best at fortune-telling? Haha. Zhuo smiled reservedly. I'm not afraid of being laughed at, but my fortune-telling ability is not only the best among all the skills I cultivate, but also the best in the world. Yi Chongqing was speechless for a long time. For a moment, he didn't know how to continue the conversation. His first thought was to take back the Tower of Annihilation, not because of anything else but because this kid's words were too unreliable. He said that his physiognomy was not good, and he said that he was the best in fortune-telling. The main purpose was to make fun of him, but he said that he was the best in fortune-telling. This was too much. The best in the world, how could such words be said so casually? Was he not afraid that the wind would hurt his tongue? Principal, you have to believe me. I'm telling the truth. Zhuo said solemnly, putting on a mature and steady look. His hands were behind his back, and he was calm and collected. He really had the air of a master, but his acting skills were a little too much. All right. Yi Chongqing smiled indifferently. Anyway, he had nothing to do today. It was a private conversation, and he wasn't in a hurry to go back. Principal, your fate is against the imperial canopy, and you're plagued by bad luck. Moreover, your fate palace is dark and gloomy, and your health is in danger. Heaven's chi is poor, and earth's will is surging. This is a situation where you are constrained from all sides and besieged from all sides. This is also the so-called dilemma. Zhuo Duo looked at Yi Chongqing's face carefully and seriously for a long time before he spoke tirelessly. Zhuo Duo originally wanted to use his fate points to peek into more mysteries and return the favor, but his fate points were directly bounced back. How could he not understand that Yi Chongqing's strength was far beyond his current cultivation? He wanted to see Yi Chongqing's fate for 3 months, but he couldn't. Oh! When Yi Chongqing heard Zhuo words, he was quite surprised. Instead, his interest was piqued and he asked, "What do you mean by that?" Internal troubles and external troubles. Evil winds are coming from all directions. Dark clouds appear in the sky, and mud pits are everywhere. Principal saying that it's a dilemma is light. This is clearly a situation that is about to collapse. Zhuo Duo said worriedly, "Principal, why is the Hidden Dragon High School in such a bad situation?" Yi Chongqing's eyes had a hint of contemplation, and he said, "Tell me the details. It's already in a precarious situation. What else is there to say?" Zhuo Duo said, "Principal, your position is on the verge of collapse, and it's obscure. All kinds of open and covert attacks, all kinds of conspiracies, all kinds of framing attacks, all kinds of clipping wings. All these have already happened to you, okay?" Yi Chongqing sighed slowly. At this moment, he somewhat believed that Zhuo Duo had really seen through something. Zhuo Duo looked at Yi Chongqing and said suspiciously, "Principal, the reason why I chose to come to the Hidden Dragon High School was also after much consideration. One of the important factors was you. This is not a compliment but a fact. If not for this, why would I choose to come to the Hidden Dragon High School? You're the stabilizing force of the Hidden Dragon High School, and it hasn't changed for many years. From what I know, you're not the kind of person who can't control the situation. You've been stable for so many years. How can you suddenly lose control of the situation? What kind of change is this?" Yi Chongqing shook his head and smiled bitterly. Zhuo's words were not wrong. He had been the principal for hundreds of years. Previously, he had handled the situation with ease and ruled with an iron fist. He had made the entire high school orderly. There was nothing that he couldn't suppress, and no one dared to come out and cause trouble. However, it was during that time, that battle, that his heart was damaged and he almost lost his life. Even after several years of recuperation, there was still no improvement. As a result, his supervision of the school was reduced by a lot. However, all of these things erupted like a violent storm after he was injured. After that, his most capable assistant, Xiang Quangren, was also splashed with the water of the River of Forgetfulness during the battle a few decades ago. He was also unable to appear and support the situation. This huge change almost caused everything in the Hidden Dragon High School to stop. It also further caused him to lose control of the Hidden Dragon High School. Starting from Vice Principal Xiang, several vice principals met with accidents one after another. The Hidden Dragon High School was almost paralyzed in an instant. The Hidden Dragon High School, which had lost a few of its main pillars, could only request for assistance. The National Martial Arts Department had continuously sent a few vice principals. However, after these people had arrived, not only did they not improve the situation of the Hidden Dragon High School, they instead caused the situation to worsen, becoming more and more intense. These vice principals came to the Hidden Dragon High School to fight for power and gain, and to pull in factions. Their methods were endless and they were full of tricks. When it came to the specific matters of guiding the entire Hidden Dragon High School, Yi Chongqing despised those people to the point of dregs. They were simply a bunch of useless people. But when it came to conspiracies, alliances, power struggles, and political compromises, even an old fox like Yi Chongqing would have to bow his head and concede defeat. That was a group of experts in this field. Yes, perhaps they were experts in this field. Since then, the Hidden Dragon High School had directly sunk into endless internal strife and chaos. Until now, they had almost fallen out of the top 3 high schools. If it were not for Yi Chongqing's strong support in forcefully standing up to protect the core teaching staff, most of whom were personally trained by Yi Chongqing and had deep feelings for the Hidden Dragon High School, perhaps the Hidden Dragon High School would have already collapsed. But even so, the teachers were still full of complaints. If it were not for the fact that they had too much effort in the Hidden Dragon High School and too many feelings that they could not bear to part with, they would have already resigned and left. Yi Chongqing let out a long sigh. Until now, His heart was still in an intermittent state of poor health. The internal problems of the Hidden Dragon High School had already become a chronic disease, deeply rooted. Unfortunately, he, who was once known as an arbitrary vice principal, was powerless to change anything. Almost all of the vice principals who had been promoted by the school had been pulled over. The other vice principals who had been promoted out of nowhere all had a pile of connections behind them. Their roots were intertwined and their connections were tangled and complicated. It is indeed beyond cure. Chapter 390. Yi Chongqing deeply felt powerless about the current situation of Hidden Dragon Academy. If his body could recover, he would only need a few years to suppress all the disharmonious forces with an iron fist and eradicate them all. But now, with his body in such a state, Yi Chongqing absolutely did not dare to act rashly before he found a suitable successor. This was because if he moved, his body would not be able to withstand it. If he suddenly let go, the Hidden Dragon High martial artist would lose his suppression and fall off the pedestal within a year. After a few years, he would be at the bottom of the rankings. After that, it would be hard to say whether there would be any Hidden Dragon Academy in the future. Hidden Dragon Academy, a place that many generations of people worked hard to build, a place where many heroes and generals came from, would be destroyed overnight. How could Yi Chongqing dare to act rashly? Although Hidden Dragon High School had already become a bunch of politicians, a bunch of greedy people, and they were no longer as elegant as before, right now Yi Chongqing could only wait. He could only bitterly endure and wait. Wait for an opportunity. Wait for a person. Xiao Duo, whether you really use the fortune-telling method or some other method to see these, then do you have a solution to deal with it? Yi Chongqing asked softly. This question really did not have much hope at all. Fundamentally, Yi Chongqing did not believe that Xiao Duo really used the so-called fortune-telling method to see these. He believed that the various drawbacks of Hidden Dragon Academy, the bad situation, had already fallen into the eyes of some people and was not considered a secret. For Xiao Duo to be able to talk about it now, it wasn't a big deal. But Principal Yi still asked for a solution because he still had a sliver of hope. Xiao Duo pondered for a moment and said, "Principal, write a word for me to see." Write a word. Yi Chongqing also pondered for a moment. His fingers moved slightly and a word suddenly appeared on the ground. Kill. He thought of the chaos in Hidden Dragon Academy, and how he could not control it with an iron fist due to various reasons. He could only slowly boil the frog in warm water. How could he not be depressed? At this moment he could not help but have the urge to explode. It was with this extreme depression and overflowing murderous intent that he wrote this word. This was what he truly thought in his heart, regardless of any backing, background, influence, or consequences. Crush that group of scum directly. Kill. Kill to bring peace to the world. This word was written with murderous intent and boundless blood. There is a blade on my head. Xiao Duo looked at this word carefully and said, "Principal, the world is empty, the blade on the edge. There is a heart to kill, but there is no hand to hold the blade. The master of the predicament should be here." However, the word written by the headmaster is slightly higher on one side. Even though the word is written with a murderous aura and is filled with murderous intent, it is still slightly uncoordinated. However, these uncoordinated words are written by you to increase your murderous aura. According to the location, this corner is east of Fenghai. Help, the master comes from the east. Once the wind and clouds meet, your wish will come true. Therefore, you need an external force to be your hand to hold the blade and punish on your behalf. Your murderous intent is already sufficient. Your strength is only waiting for an external force to stimulate it. Then you can draw the blade out of the scabbard and kill quickly. Your word is already a blade in the scabbard and you are on the battlefield. You are only waiting for the opportunity to hold the blade and draw it out. Xiao Duo looked at this word seriously. Principal, the word you wrote is in Xiaozhuan, right? But it has evolved quite a bit. Yi Chongqing raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "You can actually see the traces of Xiaozhuan. Not bad. There are not many young people who are as knowledgeable as you in martial arts nowadays." Xiao Duo smiled and said, "Principal, you might not have seen my resume. I was in the martial disciple class for a total of 5 years. During that time, other than tormenting myself as if my life depended on it, I really did learn a lot of random things. On the contrary, I have less knowledge about martial arts. Yi Chongqing smiled faintly. He thought to himself, I didn't study your resume? I can almost recite it backwards for you. However, if you look at the word kill in Xiaozhuan, especially the part that is higher on the right side in terms of appearance, there seems to be a hint of the word dragon in it. Xiaoduo reached out and wiped the word on the ground. Instantly the whole word became blurry. At a glance, it really did look like the word dragon. This unintentional act of mine has turned into a hidden dragon of killing aura. Xiaoduo said with uncertainty, Principal, I just said it in terms of the word, nothing else. From a more profound point of view, this word has the aura of a dragon. When the real dragon rises, the world will be in chaos. Blood will flow for thousands of miles, and corpses will pile up like mountains. However, the word kill has a hidden meaning. It is a bit far-fetched to say that it has the aura of a dragon. As for me, I wiped it because of fate. However, this seems to be more in line with the name of our Hidden Dragon High School. It is a different approach to achieve the same result. The name of the school? Yi Chongqing frowned. Hidden Dragon? Yes. Xiaoduo said, the so-called Hidden Dragon, as the name suggests, is a hidden dragon. A hidden dragon, even if its existence is known, it cannot be seen or touched. Before the hidden dragon rises into the abyss, it is in a state of sleep. Principal, the word kill you wrote, is it not the hidden dragon that rises into the abyss after the massacre? This is also the first time I have seen it extend from a word to another word. Xiaoduo said with uncertainty, but the murderous aura is awe-inspiring, triggering the shape of a dragon. This point is not false. Principal, may I ask if the terrain of our Hidden Dragon High School is built on top of a dragon vein? Yi Chongqing was stunned. Dragon vein? It shouldn't be. Our Fenghai city is the ancient capital of the 8 dynasties. According to legend, 8 dragon veins converged at that time to form the current atmosphere of Fenghai city. However, the 8 dragon veins are not in the area where the Hidden Dragon High School campus is located. In fact, the seniors who first established this school had only built a small school that was not famous. Later, it slowly expanded and gradually grew stronger. At that time, regardless of qualifications or connections, it was absolutely not qualified to be built on top of a dragon vein. Yi Chongqing thought deeply for a long time before speaking with certainty. That's not right. Xiaoduo frowned and said, the dragon mark is hidden and real. How could the school site not be built on top of a dragon vein? He looked up and said, Principal, shall we go up to the sky and take a look? Yi Chongqing's eyes shot out a strange light. You also know the chi viewing technique? A little. Xiaoduo was a little proud. He pursed his lips and said, didn't the old principal mention it to you? I am the successor of her chi viewing technique. Yi Chongqing once again fell into a state of speechlessness. If you are like this, you might as well proudly brag a little. Let me get used to it. Good. Let's go up to the sky and take a look. Yi Chongqing actually did not have any thoughts or even hopes about this. The Hidden Dragon High School was one of the 3 high schools of martial arts on the continent. In the past, who knew how many chi viewing scholars had come to look at the feng shui and qi? If the Hidden Dragon High School was built on top of a dragon vein, it would have been seen long ago. Why wait until now? Even if you are the successor of He Yuanyue, so what? Can you make something out of nothing? At this time the sun was setting in the west. Between heaven and earth there was a little hazy. Only the last ray of light was about to pass away. In the distance Li Chenglong, Xiangchong, and Xiangbing were walking over here. But Yi Chongqing and Xiaoduo did not pay attention to them. Yi Chongqing grabbed Xiaoduo's hand. Without making a move, they had already soared into the sky, and in an instant they were hundreds of meters above the ground. Is it enough? Not enough. Principal, please find the north, south, west, and east direction, and then fly 1,000 meters up in the north direction, and directly fly out of Fenghai City. High up in the north, look down from above and see the full view of Fenghai City. Only then can you determine where the dragon vein is located. Yi Chongqing felt more and more that this kid might really have some skills. Hearing this, he did not hesitate and flew up with Xiaoduo. A moment later, high up in the sky, Zhou Xiaoduo was almost stunned by the scenery of Fenghai City. Too magnificent. Too spectacular. The area of Fenghai City was at least 20 times larger than the small border city of Phoenix City. People were densely packed, and the scenery was myriad. At this very high altitude, one could see the extreme prosperity and magnificence. Waves of clear air floated across the sky. This was a sign of the dense population and the flourishing of talents. And the entire Fenghai City was gathered together. The mountains, rivers, and cities rose and fell in a picturesque disorder. As far as the eye could see, in the eyes of the Qi watchers, there were roaring dragons that soared into the sky from time to time. Dragon-shaped phenomena of thousands and tens of thousands of feet, long meandered on the ground and intertwined in the sky. For vertical and for horizontal, a total of 8 dragon veins. The ancient capital of the 8 dynasties, the 8 veins crisscrossing. There's no mistake. Zhou Xiaoduo looked at the full view of Fenghai City and pointed. That should be the ancient capital royal city. At such a distance, at such a high altitude, even Yi Chongqing, with his profound cultivation, could only see the general picture. He could not see the details very clearly. Zhou Xiaoduo could not see anything at all. But what surprised Yi Chongqing was that Zhou Xiaoduo's pointing was not off in the general direction. That's right. Over there is the place where the dragon qi of Fenghai is the most abundant. Zhou Xiaoduo praised, the ancients are full of experts. The chosen location is the place where the dragon qi is gathered and spiraled. The momentum is soaring but not overbearing. It is also the place where the heaven and earth meet, and the yin and yang meet. It is the easiest place to gather the power of the heaven and earth and transform it into the emperor's qi. It's really amazing. It is indeed amazing. Yi Chongqing admitted this point very much. It is said that this is an old site left behind during the dynasty. Later, after the world changed and the continent was overturned, it was rebuilt. Although the geographical location and appearance didn't change, many of the materials used to build it are very different from the original site. After all, at that time, the Qi watchers could not cultivate and could not observe from the sky. They could only measure from the ground. But they could still do it so accurately. They are indeed extraordinary people. Chapter 391. Yes, Zhou Xiaoduo admitted it completely. Although these 8 dragons are located in different directions and have different paths, the position of the dragon heads has always been pointing in this direction. Zhou Xiaoduo said, therefore, there must be a saying in the Gu King city. There is no doubt that the gathering of fate energy is evident. However, there is one point. The Gu King city is in the northwest direction, and the Hidden Dragon High School is in the southeast direction. The mountain shape of the dragon veins may pass by occasionally, but none of them pass by the southeast hinterland. Although this makes sense in terms of geography and earth veins, it is more or less a little strange. You must know that in the southeast position of the Hidden Dragon High School, there are 3 dragon veins intertwined at the other end of the Dragon Tail Mountain range. However, all the way to the northwest, they perfectly avoid the area of the Hidden Dragon High School. After this section, the dragon veins and dragon bodies begin to intertwine. The dragon heads also move forward in a winding manner without avoiding each other. However, why do they all go around this area at the same time? Zhou Xiaoduo could not understand this at all. He could not help but feel suspicious. When he looked at the area again, all he could see were a few small hills. There were no signs of dragon veins at all. In fact, compared to other places, there were more depressions like basins. From the perspective of the aura examination technique, such a place would not even have a dragon's cave, much less a dragon's vein. However, the dragon veins stretched for thousands of miles and left such a blank space. It was like a painting with splashing ink, leaving a blank space. It was full of disharmony. After the great changes in the world, although there was the change of meteorites, the dragon veins in this area of Fenghai did not change much. The end of the 8 dragon veins eventually soared into the sky. In other words, these 8 dragon veins are now empty. Although the dragon qi still exists, it is already abnormally thin. It will take an unknown number of years of nurturing before it can take shape again. But now the dragon veins are gone. Zhou Xiaoduo frowned. No matter how he looked at it, he could not understand it. No matter how he thought about it, he felt that something was wrong. At the very least, in all the books that he had read about the Qi observation technique, they all clearly indicated that a place like the Hidden Dragon High Martial School would definitely not have a dragon vein. But if that's the case, it's completely at odds with the momentum of the words that the principal wrote unintentionally. Could it be that I was wrong this time? Zhou Xiaoduo muttered to himself. Zhou Xiaoduo's gaze went from near to far, and then even further away. Even further away in the southeast, there was another uncertain location. Over there, he could vaguely feel his meridians churning. They were faintly moving towards him bit by bit. Principal, may I ask, where is that place? Zhou Xiaoduo raised his hand high and pointed to a place in the southeast that was out of sight. That's the direction you came from. Yi Chongqing smiled faintly. You came from Phoenix City, that's where you came from. Oh, Zhou Xiaoduo began to recollect. Along the way, he and Li Chenglong had indeed crossed several mountains in succession. Those mountains were all mountain ranges that stretched for hundreds of thousands of miles. It could be said that they were extremely majestic. Until they went down the mountain range and once again set foot on the plains, they ran madly for another 1,800 miles before they reached the territory of Fenghai City. He frowned and pondered, and did not speak for a long time. It was very rare that there were no signs of meridians here. It was inexplicably chaotic. The dragon vein was horizontally, but it was stable in all directions. Their final destination was the same, and they were all heading towards the northwest. This was not a big deal, right? According to the terrain and the Qi observation technique, this should be normal, right? However, Zhou Xiaoduo felt that something was wrong from the bottom of his heart, but he could not tell what was wrong. What did you see? Yi Chongqing's smile was very warm. In his opinion, perhaps as a principal, he saw a promising junior. Then, when he first arrived at Fenghai City, he brought him to see the whole Fenghai City. It did not matter. Anyway, he had nothing to do. He was idle anyway. Moreover, this child's words and actions were really insightful. His facial features were also not exaggerated, but he really had some skills. As for the dragon vein, for thousands of years, the dragon vein of Fenghai City had been determined. How could there be any other changes? If there were to be any, it would be a real joke. I can't see it. Zhou Xiaoduo shook his head in confusion. At this moment he was very disappointed and lost. Judging by the meaning of the words just now, there should be the existence of dragon qi. But in reality there was clearly no such thing. Except for such a contradictory situation, it was really a blow to him. Then let's go down? Yi Chongqing smiled. Okay. Zhou Xiaoduo nodded. He could not see anything. If he did not go down, could he still live in the sky? No matter how disappointed or unwilling he was, he knew when to advance and retreat. Yi Chongqing smiled and once again flew straight with Zhou Xiaoduo and slowly descended. They flew horizontally for 7,000 to 8,000 meters and descended about 100 meters. Zhou Xiaoduo still looked back unwillingly. At this moment, the two had passed the position of the dragon's head and arrived in the sky above the middle of Fenghai City. According to the dragon vein, the two were now close to the dragon's body and belly. As they flew forward, Zhou Xiaoduo still looked back from time to time. Suddenly, at a certain angle, he clearly saw the 8 dragon veins converging from 8 directions to the northwest. The dragon's head was surging, and there was a faint feeling that the feeling of rushing to be the first. Perhaps there were benefits on the other side? Or could it be that they could only rush to the sky from there? Or that there was some kind of peerless ferocious beast chasing after these 8 dragons? They were all fleeing for their lives in a hurry. Zhou Xiaoduo's consciousness was in a trance. He seemed to have vaguely thought of something, but his mind was blurry and difficult to clear. Suddenly his vision blurred. The two had fallen straight down from the sky. The landing point was the courtyard of the villa where he and Li Chenglong lived. The location where he talked to Yi Chongqing just now was actually the same. Yi Chongqing's landing posture was extremely gentle, just enough to ensure that he landed. He was still sitting on the chair in his original position. At this moment the world was completely dark. The curtain of night had officially fallen. The headmaster's control is really unprecedented. Swixiao Duo could not help but flatter him. When he thought of this, some vague thoughts that were still lingering in his mind just now were completely dispelled. Little rascal. Yi Chongqing smiled faintly and said, "How can such a shallow method be associated with unprecedented and unprecedented? The two little guys from the Xiang family are coming to find you. I'll go back. You can do it yourself." With a chuckle, his body suddenly disappeared, leaving no trace behind. Swixiao Duo turned his head and saw the door creak open. Li Qinglong came out of the room with Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing. Have you been here all this time? Why didn't I see you just now?" Li Qinglong's eyes were full of disbelief. Swixiao Duo frowned and looked at Li Qinglong. "Swollen, what do you mean? Why did you bring people to our house? There's no food or drink inside. Did you bring them here to invite me to dinner?" Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing smiled apologetically. "Hello, class monitor." Swixiao Duo felt more and more that something was wrong and instinctively became alert. Why are these two suddenly so polite to me? This is not right. There was something very wrong with this. As the saying goes, if one is polite to a wise man, he must have a request. These two have big plans for me. In an instant, Swixiao Duo felt as if he was on a battlefield. A creepy feeling of being coveted arose spontaneously. "Let's make it clear first. I don't have money," Swixiao Duo said righteously, "and I will never treat you." The three of them were speechless. How much can a meal cost? Do you have to be like this? Even if you want to amass money, you don't have to save so little money. Seeing the three of them come together, Swixiao Duo knew their intentions very well. He turned his head to look at Li Qinglong and happened to see Swollen's slightly evasive eyes. He could not help but understand. A dog's stomach really can't hold two tails of oil. Swixiao Duo sighed. "Class monitor, I heard that you have aged vanilla orchid here?" Xiang Bing was a straightforward person. When she saw that Swixiao Duo was trying to evade the topic, she simply asked directly and went straight to the point. "What vanilla orchid? I don't have it." No, and it's aged. You're so particular about it." Swixiao Duo was even more straightforward. He flatly denied it with an innocent face, as if he really did not have it. He was very confused. Xiang Bing could not help but feel angry. The other owner, Li Qinglong, had already taken the initiative to confess. "You're still stubbornly resisting. Aren't you just trying to buy it? You're really good at amassing money." Stingy guy, once there's an opportunity to amass money, you won't let it go? Xiang Chong bowed and said gently, "Class monitors Wa. This vanilla orchid is very useful to the Xiang family. We're not here to make empty promises. If you have any conditions, just tell us. No matter what conditions you have, we'll accept them unconditionally." Swixiao Duo said indifferently, "I really don't have the herb you're talking about. I only have a stock of herb that Li Qinglong left with me a few days ago. I'm just helping to take care of it. As for whether this herb is what you're asking for or anything else, what does it have to do with me?" Li Qinglong's eyes immediately revealed a look of surprise, as well as intense gratitude. Then he was slightly astonished. The vanilla orchid was something shared by both of them. However, Swixiao Duo's words now meant that he was giving up his share of it, and Li Qinglong was the sole owner of it. In other words, he was transferring all the favors he had received from helping the Xiang family to Li Qinglong alone. It was hard to imagine how much help this would be to Li Qinglong. Li Qinglong was grateful in his heart, but he was also secretly laughing. Could this guy have misunderstood something? His style changed a little too quickly. Swixiao Duo's expression remained indifferent. His heart was as calm as ever, and he felt relaxed. Chapter 392. With Swixiao Duo's stingy character, he didn't want to give it away so easily. At the very least, he wanted the other party to give him a bargaining chip that was full of sincerity. A bird in the hand is better than 10 in the bush. No matter how great the Xiang clan's reputation was, it was still not as practical as tangible benefits. However, this vanilla orchid was indeed obtained by Li Qinglong through painstaking efforts. Moreover, it was Li Qinglong who brought people here today. Swixiao Duo suddenly couldn't bear it and simply agreed to Li Qinglong's plan. Li Qinglong didn't find the vanilla orchid by chance. Zhuo Duo knew this better than anyone else. Ever since the two of them left the safe area of Phoenix City and entered the meteorite plains, he had been searching for it. Along the way, Li Chenglong did not know how many of those dark red and bare mounds he encountered. He even deliberately passed through the most dangerous areas in the core of the plain. After finding the vanilla orchid, he stopped looking for other resources and sped up all the way to Fenghai. The reason was self-evident. Moreover, Li Chenglong's Li clan was only a small clan. Thinking of this, Zhuo Duo didn't hesitate anymore, and directly handed the decision to Li Chenglong. On the other side, after hearing Zhuo Duo's declaration, Xiang Bing and Xiang Chong immediately fixed their burning eyes on Li Chenglong. Zhuo Duo said lightly, "Along the way, Li Chenglong dug up hundreds of such caves. Only when he found that troublesome herb did he stop looking for it. Just this hard work is something I can't afford. I hope the Xiang clan doesn't think it's easy to get it. How can there be so many coincidences in this world? Only painstaking efforts and sincerity can achieve it." Xiang Bing and Xiang Chong nodded repeatedly. Xiang Chong said emotionally to the Xiang clan, "This kindness is more important than a mountain. Although I, Xiang Chong, don't have much ability, I can make a promise on behalf of my Xiang clan. I won't let Vice Class Monitor Li's hard work and sincerity go to waste." Xiang Chong said heavily. This promise didn't seem to say anything, but it already represented that anything was possible. What's there to lose? We're all classmates. It's only right that we help each other. Zhuo Duo chuckled. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's just talk about Swollen Face and Miss Xiang's bruised nose and swollen face. Judging from the situation, it's very likely that she'll continue to be beaten in the future. Just take Swollen Face's apology in advance. Xiang Bing's face turned red as she glared at Zhuo Duo. Class Monitors had a strange charm. His ability to attract hatred was unparalleled in the world. Just a moment ago, he was still talking about serious matters, and even when he was determined to help, but the words coming out of his mouth always made people unable to help but have the urge to beat him up. Until now, Xiang Bing's face was still bruised and her nose was crooked. She looked like a female hooligan who had just been beaten up for a territory and had returned in defeat. The vanilla orchid was really too important. After Xiang Bing heard about it, she couldn't care less about herself. But Xiang Chong's eyes flashed. He looked thoughtfully at Li Chenglong and then at Xiang Bing. Then he laughed and said, "Class Monitors, don't worry. Accidental injuries are inevitable in a fight. How can Binger be angry? We're both doing this for the future of martial arts. There's no need to apologize. You're exaggerating. He laughed. "In the future, I'll have to rely on Vice Class Monitor Li to take care of Binger." Li Chenglong laughed and scratched his head, saying, "Actually, it's pretty good. When I fought with Xiang Bing, I beat her up. I had a lot of fun. I improved a lot." Xiang Bing heard someone's words and made a gurgling sound in her throat. She was so angry that she almost suffocated. Xiang Chong's expression was also interesting. Zhuo Duo even had a feeling that he couldn't bear to look at them. Xiang Chong said, "Class Monitors, can I see the vanilla orchid you kept? Why can't you see it?" Zhuo Duo was very straightforward. Since he was determined to do a favor, he didn't want to drag it out. He quickly understood that if it was okay, then it was okay. If it wasn't, then forget it. This point had been reminded countless times in his father's messages. As the saying went, teach your son in front of others, teach your wife behind others. However, Zhuo Chonglu never taught his son in front of others. As for Zhuo Duo and Zhuo Xiaonian's education, he usually taught them about the ways of the world through his mobile phone. When he encountered something, he suddenly had an epiphany and felt that it would be beneficial for his son and daughter. He would just type a few words over. If he sent a message over, he could ignore it. There was no need to reply. If he sent it 3 times and still didn't reply, Zhuo Duo and Zhuo Xiaonian would have to write a report on the 3 points mentioned above. It couldn't be less than 5,000 words. There had to be evidence to prove that he really understood and understood. Zhuo Chonglu also passed by as if nothing had happened. All kinds of things were done quietly through his mobile phone. For example, Zhuo Chonglu once sent a message about giving gifts as a favor. When you're out, you have to socialize. When you're single, you have to ask for help. If you need to give a favor, you have to make a prompt decision. Make the favor real as soon as possible. Don't drag it out, don't leave people hanging, and don't make them wait. If you drag it out, it'll turn into resentment. If you hang it out, it'll turn into hatred. If you wait, it'll turn into enmity. Don't mention it before you give it away. Don't mention it after you give it away. If you don't give a small gift, it'll be heavy. However, when you speak, it'll be light. Zuo knew he still did not understand these words. However, this did not stop him from strictly following Zhuo Chonglu's instructions. Even if he could not figure it out now, there was no harm in thinking about it in the future. No matter what, his father's life experience was much greater than a young boy like him. There was nothing wrong with trusting his father. It's right here. Zuo smiled. He invited the siblings into the living room and brought the vanilla orchid out of his spatial ring. He placed it on the cloudwood coffee table. In an instant, a fragrance that smelled like orchids and musk wafted into the air and filled the entire villa. The temperature in the room rose as well. Needless to say, Zuo had been nourishing this herb with the Flaming Sun Sutra all this while. 10-leaf. It's actually a 10-leaf cultivator? Xiangchong stood up abruptly. Amidst his shock and bewilderment, he was exceptionally shocked. The extreme joy in his eyes caused his entire body to tremble. Li Chenglong, on the other hand, had a surprised expression on his face. 10-leaf? That can't be right? He remembered that when he and Zhuo dug up the vanilla orchid, although it was a top-grade herb, it was only a 9-leaf cultivator. How did it sprout a 10-leaf cultivator in just a few days? Naturally, Swollen did not know that Zuo had many high-end items in his spatial ring. Just the top-grade jade of astral souls in the spatial ring alone was a peerless item in the world. Under the nourishment, the vanilla orchid had benefited greatly. Moreover, Zuo had nourished the vanilla orchid with the Flaming Sun Sutra many times. It was only natural that its quality had improved. Swollen. Zuo chuckled. Since you're so eager to give it to the great beauty Xiangbing, I'll give it to her for you. Li Chenglong, a man of steel, was dumbfounded. Why did I? On the other hand, Xiangbing's face was flushed red. She stomped her feet angrily. However, the vanilla orchid was too important. She did not dare to be angry. Thank you, thank you. Xiangchong was so excited that he began to stutter. An indescribable excitement rose in his heart, so much so that he could not stop trembling when he saw the vanilla orchid. Even now, he was still trembling. He did not expect this great contribution to fall into his and his little sister's hands just like that. Gentlemen, I have to make a serious announcement. Li Chenglong was dazed for a long time. Finally, he said seriously, this vanilla orchid does not belong to me alone. It belongs to me and Zhuo. It's true that I spent a lot of effort searching for this spiritual plant, but the fact that this spiritual plant can reach its current quality is all thanks to Boss Zhuo's care. Therefore, this gift to the Xiang clan is naturally a gift from both of us. Xiangchong and Xiangbing looked at each other and smiled from the bottom of their hearts. They said, of course, class monitor and vice class monitor. Zuo said casually, we're all classmates. There's no need for pleasantries. Now it's more important to send it home. Why do I hear that not everyone wants old Master Xiang to be in good health? Yes, Zhuo is right. After being reminded by Zuo, Xiangchong hurriedly took out his mobile phone and contacted his family. Now that they were in Zuo's villa, they were naturally safe. In this place, no one in the whole of Fenghai would dare to be presumptuous. After all, the principal's house was just next door. However, if the siblings were to walk out without knowing the immensity of heaven and earth, Xiangchong was absolutely certain that in less than a minute, their corpses would be strewn on the streets, and the vanilla orchid would disappear without a trace. Well, it would be best if they did not know where it was. The probability of it being destroyed on the spot was more than 90%. After all, there was still a chance if they did not know where it was. How could those people give the Xiang family any chance? Xiangchong's report on the phone ended very quickly. He did not say much. He took a picture of the vanilla orchid and sent it over. That was it. However, after half a minute or at most a minute, the sound of thunder could be heard. There was a loud rumble in the air, and a towering aura suddenly descended. The current master of the Xiang family, the backbone of the family, and the elders of the Xiang family flew over from 3 directions. They landed in the courtyard of the villa together. The leader was a burly man with a full beard. He strode towards the door. However, he did not push the door open directly. Instead, he raised his hand and was about to knock on the door. The door opened with a squeak. Xiangbing and Xiangcheng flashed out. "Dad! Where is it? Let me see." The burly man was pleasantly surprised. He strode into the door. However, his height of 2.3 meters was too big. His forehead hit the door frame with a thud. With this collision he himself was fine, but the entire villa shook a little. He touched his head as if nothing had happened and walked into the living room quietly. He saw the vanilla orchid at first glance. The complete product. It's really the 10-leaf orchid. Chapter 393. The burly man's eyes shone brightly and his breathing stopped. After a long while he took a deep breath and turned to Zhuo Duo and Li Chenglong. "Class Monitor Zhuo, Vice Class Monitor Li. I'm Xiang Tianfei, the current head of the Xiang family. I'm also the father of Xiangbing and Xiangcheng. I'm worried about the fragrant orchid grass and didn't realize my lack of manners. Please don't blame me." Zhuo Duo looked obedient and sensible. "Uncle Xiang, what are you talking about? You're Lil Bing and Lil Chong's father, so you're Li Chenglong's and my elder. We're a family. How can you say that we're lacking in manners when we're a family?" Xiangcheng and Xiangbing's eyes widened in an instant. That obedient looked really sensible. Coupled with that pink and tender face and that slightly shy blush, one couldn't help but have a feeling that this child is really good. Damn, here it is again. This is the Zhuo Duo from the Longhu ranking competition. When he faced the group of high martial arts teachers, he's really a 1,000-year-old fox. Whatever he pretends to be, he's exactly like it. The brother and sister were actually very impressed. The two admitted that they were far inferior to him in terms of his ability to change his expression at will. Xiang Tianfei was startled for a moment. Then he burst into laughter. Good, not bad. In that case, Uncle won't stand on ceremony. This generous gift is really too much. Uncle will definitely repay you." Zhuo Duo had a sincere and honest look on his face, as if he had nothing to hide. "What are you talking about, Uncle Xiang? You're too polite. We're already very happy that our family can use it. Especially Li Chenglong, I'm just afraid that our family can't use it." Haha. The previous sentence directly called him uncle, but this sentence directly referred to our family. It made one feel extremely close to him. Xiang Tianfei was stunned for a moment before he turned to look at Li Chenglong. His smile became even more affectionate. Zhuo Duo laughed and said, "Li Chenglong, that brat, we've been looking for this all the way here. He's exhausted himself. Aha, this guy is really lucky. He really found it. Uncle Xiang, since we're here, let's hurry up and take the vanilla orchid home. I heard from Li Chenglong that this herb is quite precious. It's best to take it as soon as possible. What's that saying again? A long night is fraught with dreams." Xiang Tianfei said repeatedly, not bad. Little Worm and Little Ice Egg are really lucky to have classmates like you. Haha, since that's the case, Uncle Xiang won't stand on ceremony with you. My family has been waiting for this thing for more than 20 years. I'll send it home now. How can I miss such a good opportunity? Uncle Xiang, please. Xiang Tianfei smiled from the bottom of his heart. He picked up the vanilla orchid with both hands and put it into his spatial ring. Then, without stopping, he immediately took his leave. Outside the door, a total of 16 experts of the Xiang family stood in a defensive formation, waiting silently. The moment Xiang Tianfei stepped out of the door, he flew up into the sky without saying anything. The 16 people followed him in 2 rows, protecting Xiang Tianfei in the middle. They left in a flash like a storm. Xiangcheng and Xiangbing didn't leave with their father. Because Xiang Tianfei was in a hurry to use the herb, he didn't have time to talk about many substantive issues. For example, the price? How to thank him? Even if he didn't mention it, such a big matter couldn't be settled with a simple thank you. However, before the two of them could say anything, they heard Zhuo Duo laughing loudly, his whole body trembling. Ha ha ha. Little worm, little ice egg. Ha ha ha. These names are really beautiful. Duo held his stomach and swayed from side to side. He was overjoyed. Ice egg. Ice egg. Ha 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 ha. Xiangchong and Xiangbing's feelings of gratitude instantly froze. What replaced them was embarrassment and anger. Shut up. Xiangbing's face turned red. She said angrily, who doesn't have a nickname? There are people called Gooden, Goshing, and Stinky. Don't you have a nickname? What's so funny? Duo said proudly, Ice egg, you're right. I've only had one name since I was young, Duo. There's no other name. Duo's name is so simple and easy to understand. Ha ha ha. Ice egg, let me tell you, your father and mother are insulting you. If I ran away from home earlier, I would have turned evil. Ha ha ha, let me go back and fight with them. Xiangbing was so angry that she almost had an asthma attack. Her eyes were as wide as copper bells. Duo, don't go too far. Let me tell you, I'll ask my father to beat you. Ouch. Duo smiled. It's possible before today, but after today, your father definitely won't beat me. Do you believe me? Well, you definitely believe me. I guess even your brother won't dare to beat me now. What should I do? Why don't you ask Li Chenglong to beat me for you? Ha ha ha. Xiangbing was so angry that her chest puffed up. She looked at Xiangchong fiercely. Someone bullied your sister. And you're just going to watch? Go and beat him up. Xiangchong smiled bitterly. First, I really can't beat him up. He's our benefactor, a big benefactor. Second, if I can beat him, even if he's my benefactor, I'll choose to beat him up first. Sai, let's not talk about other things. Class monitors was personality is really too weird. Xiangchong was also from a big family. His experience and knowledge were far beyond ordinary martial cultivators. However, he had never seen or even heard of Wuxia's personality before. He really didn't want to die from anger. His previous sentence was polite, but in the next second he could anger you to death, drive you crazy, and make you so angry that your liver hurts. He was kind and honest to his elders, but he was so cheap to his peers. Should I say it or not? I haven't eaten yet. I remember saying it just now. But it seems like no one took it seriously. I'm so sad, I'm so sad. Duo turned to Li Chenglong and asked, Swollen, are you hungry? Li Chenglong, I'm hungry. He was also confused by Wuxia's actions. At this moment, his mind was in a daze, as if he had fallen into 5 miles of fog. I heard that there's a very special restaurant in Fenghai City. Duo said with great interest. The ingredients in that restaurant are all astral beasts of the core formation stage and above. They use a special method to transfer the essence and spiritual energy of the astral beasts to the best piece of meat from the astral beasts. Then, it's made into dishes that retain the essence and spiritual energy of the astral beasts to the greatest extent. As for the vegetarian dishes, almost all of them are spiritual plants and spiritual herbs that are more than 100 years old. The wine is also made from spiritual roots and spiritual fruits that are more than 100 years old. It's really tempting. After hearing this, Xiangbing and Xiangchong's little faces turned as pale as bitter gourds. When Li Chenglong heard the benefits, he naturally had to play along with Duo. He immediately showed a very interested and greedy look. Really? There's actually such a good place? Of course. Wuxia's face was full of reverie. He said with fascination, it sounds like a high-end restaurant. I wonder if anyone would be willing to treat us to a meal. Li Chenglong hesitated and said with uncertainty, it's just a meal. Don't you have that much magnanimity? That's not necessarily true. There are all kinds of people in this world. Duo said earnestly, Swollen, you have to change your character. You can't go on like this. You're already so old, why don't you have any social experience? In this world, people don't have to treat you to a meal just because you help them. What's the old saying? Treating you is a favor, but not treating you is reasonable. In our world, treating you is a favor but not treating you is unreasonable. If you're unreasonable, then so be it. What can you do to them? Who knows, maybe he really did just say thank you and treat you to a meal. Duo said disdainfully, you're thinking too much. Li Chenglong grinned. That can't be, right? Why can't it be? Usually the bill is paid with Star Origin coins. Do you know what the bill is in that restaurant? It's the mid-grade Star Grade Jade of Astral Souls swollen. Don't tell me you don't know the market value of mid-grade Astral Souls jade? So expensive. Zhuo was still going on and on. Xiangchong couldn't take it anymore and quickly stopped him. I'll treat you. I'll treat you. Class monitor Zhua. You must be tired. Let's go. I'll treat you to a meal there. Take a rest, take a rest. Really? Zhuo's eyes were filled with suspicion. Really? Xiangchong promised. How can I accept that? It's really expensive. Zhuo looked embarrassed. Xiangchong felt that he couldn't keep up with Zhuo's train of thought. It's my duty, my duty. All right. Zhuo's face was full of embarrassment. I didn't expect you to treat me for a month. All right, a month it is. We'll just eat there at noon and in the afternoon. There's no need for breakfast. It should save you a lot of money. Xiangbing sat on the ground and stared blankly. A month? Who said it's a month? Zhuo, you've gone too far. I'll kill you. Xiangbing was furious. She couldn't take it anymore and pounced on Zhuo. Her 10 fingernails were shining and she hit Zhuo's face. Help! Zhuo fled. Li Chenglong had an idea and asked, Boss, do you need my help? Zhuo, why did you say that Xiangbing asked me to hit you? Why should I help her? We're on the same team. When Zhuo heard this, it was as if he was struck by lightning. He was stunned for a moment and was almost scratched by Xiangbing's sharp claws. As he fled, he stole a glance at Li Chenglong. Bro, you're not called the leader of the Iron God sect for nothing. I'm completely convinced. After another 40 minutes, the 4 of them set off and headed for the legendary first grade in the firmament. The reason why it took so long was mainly because Xiangbing had to take care of herself. She went to the principal's house next door and used the principal's nutrition cabin to heal her injuries. Otherwise, you might as well kill a stunning beauty like Xiangbing if you let her eat downtown with that crooked nose and swollen face. Chapter 394. First Grade of the Firmament. This was the name of the restaurant, extremely domineering. Mainly because it had the capital to be so domineering. In this restaurant there were no ordinary ingredients at all. There were all kinds of heavenly treasures and spiritual herbs, including special ingredients that were extremely hard to find in the depths of the ocean. From the innate realm to the unlimited star beast meat. Theoretically speaking, as long as you ordered in advance, this restaurant would be able to get it for you. One must know that some high-level star beast meat could cause an Origin Core Grandmaster to explode with just one bite. This was enough to prove the huge amount of spiritual qi in this restaurant. However, to eat here, not only did one need to make an appointment, one also needed to have a high enough cultivation base, and a large amount of jade of astral souls or other treasures that could be used to offset the price. It could be said that even the cheapest meal here, a bowl of white jade soul rice with a bowl of purple core grass soup, was not enough for an ordinary person at the bottom of the food chain. However, even though the price of the food was so high, there were always no empty seats here. Every day there were 3 halls. In the morning there were 9 tables for breakfast. In the afternoon there were 9 tables for lunch. In the evening there were still 9 tables for dinner. Other than that, there were also 9 tables that were not used easily. And that was all. This meant that the first grade of the firmament would only serve 9 tables of customers in the morning, afternoon, and evening market under normal circumstances, and those were the 9 tables that were not used easily. Only people above the royal god realm had the right to eat at these tables. Only cultivators above the royal god realm had the right to eat at these tables. If you were only at the cloud transformation realm, under normal circumstances where all 9 tables were full, even if you were able to bid 100 million jade of astral souls, you would not be allowed to eat at these tables. How many royal gods were there in the entire Fenghai city? However, the first grade of the firmament would rather keep the tables empty. Sometimes the tables would be empty for a few months. The rules of the first grade of the firmament were so strict and domineering. The reason why they could go today was because Xiangchong had called his father and asked for his membership card. Then, He had asked the family to send a royal god realm cultivator to accompany them. Only then did they have the right to eat at the royal god realm seats. If they followed the normal procedure, there would be no seats. The ordinary seats below had already been queued up for a few months. They had arrived at the first grade of the firmament. There weren't any buildings in this area, only this small building. The area within a radius of a few thousand meters was filled with soft green grass. There wasn't even a single luxurious vehicle to be seen. Normally, those who could come here to eat had already surpassed this level. Shuo and Li Chenglong secretly looked at each other. This was a grade 1 from the heavens. Just based on its external appearance, it was already far above Phoenix City's highest grade club, Brilliant Sky. Fenghai was indeed worthy of being the ancient capital of the 8 dynasties. It was not something a small city at the border of Phoenix City could compare to. What a waste! Seeing a god-reigning expert bring 4 juniors to the top floor, the diners all had looks of pity on their faces. Even if he were to spoil a child, he shouldn't spoil her like this. It was reasonable for the god-controlling cultivators to go up, but why would those kids, who were at most in the embryonic breathing realm of the innate realm, go up? They couldn't even digest the meat of a nascent soul transformation stage star beast. Bringing them up to eat the meat of a primordial elixir realm star beast. Wasn't it a waste? However, they were rich and willful, especially with a god-controlling cultivator bringing them along. This was something that couldn't be said. This is my first time coming to this place. Xiangchong looked like he had just arrived. He grimaced and actually looked timid. I've been here 3 times, and I've always come with my father. Xiangbing raised her hand and smiled proudly. Xiangchong was speechless. Suddenly he felt that it was unfair in his heart. He brought his daughter here but not his son. He suddenly felt that he wasn't his biological son. Humph, are they really twins? It's too unfair. This place is so expensive. Li Chenglong obviously didn't understand why they had to come here for a meal. After all, from a normal point of view, just treating someone to a meal here was already a huge favor. Was it really worth it to waste their friendship on such a place? Xiangchong started to order the dishes, and Xiaoduo started to read the introduction in the room. There were several thick books. After flipping through them, he passed the introduction to Li Chenglong and walked out. With an obedient and honest look, he went to the lobby manager to get close to him. The manager was very patient with the guests brought by the Xiang family. He answered all their questions patiently. After a short while, all the fragrant dishes were served. Xiaoduo also returned to his seat, satisfied with his inquiries. Eating was secondary. Gathering information was the main purpose. However, if he didn't come with the Xiang family, Xiaoduo would have to wait at least half a year to eat here with his own ability. This was already the most optimistic estimate. He ate his meal with a satisfied expression and even drank some wine. Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong said goodbye and left. Not bad, not bad. Bing Dander, little worm, from now on we don't owe the Xiang family anything. Xiaoduo laughed and waved his hand. Together with Li Chenglong, they disappeared into the crowd. Behind them, Xiangchong and Xiangbing didn't have time to react. They didn't understand the meaning of Xiaoduo's words. They just waved their hands subconsciously, and Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong disappeared. These 2 classmates of yours are really not simple characters. Behind them, the middle-aged man who accompanied them to eat all the way said. This man was also tall and sturdy. His curly beard was almost the same as Xiang Tianfei's. The only difference was that he was a few centimeters shorter. His beard wasn't as thick, and his eyes weren't as dignified and sharp. Second uncle, what's wrong? Xiangchong was still puzzled. This was Xiangchong and Xiangbing's second uncle, the younger brother of the head of the Xiang family, Xiang Tianxiang. When they were eating just now, they introduced each other briefly. After that, they didn't talk much. This was a meal for the younger generation to get closer to each other. Xiang Tianxiang was very clear about his position. He was really just an accompaniment, a tool that allowed them to have such a meal. At this time, he couldn't put on the dignity of an elder. Instead, he had to reduce his sense of existence as much as possible. First, he seemed to deliberately take advantage of you to give you a sense of balance. You feel that you won't owe him much in the future in school. This is taking care of your feelings. Otherwise, if you're in the same class and have to face two classmates who owe each other a big favor every day, you too will unconsciously feel inferior. Also, you'll always be in a disadvantageous position psychologically. This is extremely detrimental to your state of mind. If that's the case, the friendship of giving the vanilla orchid won't be maximized. Because you don't get along well with the two of you, there will always be grudges between you and the Xiang family. More or less, there will always be regrets. Therefore, this meal was arranged. From your eyes, you can see that he doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He doesn't know that things are expensive. He's eager for quick success and instant benefits. He's taking advantage of your kindness and taking advantage of you. Thus, you've reached a balance in your hearts. Because you've indeed paid a huge price, you don't owe each other anything. Everyone is equal. After all, you've paid a sky-high price for this meal. Ordinary people may not be able to afford it even if they save for a lifetime. Don't you understand? The main purpose of this meal is to take care of your feelings. It's purely for the two of you. It's not that he wants to eat or take advantage of you. Do you understand? Xiang Tianxiang saw things very clearly. This was the value of a mature adult, as well as an experienced and knowledgeable person. I still don't understand. Second uncle, what you said is so confusing. Xiang Bing was still confused. Idiot! Xiang Tianxiang reprimanded without any trace of politeness. He genuinely wants to be friends with you. He doesn't just want to be your benefactor. That's why he said that last sentence. From now on, he and your Xiang clan don't owe each other anything. Xiang Tianxiang recalled the whole process of the meal. This kid has an exquisite heart. He's talented. Even if you try to learn from him, you won't be able to learn it. There's really no comparison between people. The brother and sister lowered their heads and pondered. Think about it carefully. Even if he said that we don't owe each other anything and dispelled any possible discomfort between the two of you, in reality, can our Xiang clan really erase this favor? Our Xiang clan owes him a huge favor. But this favor is owed by the entire Xiang clan. It doesn't include the two of you. From now on, this favor has nothing to do with the two of you. Brilliant! You've preserved the existence of the favor and taken care of your classmate's self-esteem. Moreover, you've also obtained the information he wanted. Xiang Tianxiang sighed. These two classmates of yours are both shrewd. You must get along well with them in the future. Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing nodded. Xiang Bing's face twisted. She said, Second uncle, you said that this guy took care of our self-esteem. Didn't you hear during the meal just now? He's a bastard. Every word he says makes others feel uncomfortable. It's as if he feels uncomfortable. How annoying. She recalled how Zhuo Duo said little worm, and Isaac just now that Xiang Bing still felt that her hands were itchy. She really wanted to beat him up. A faint smile appeared on Xiang Tianxiang's face as he said, That's right. Every word he says makes you want to beat him up uncontrollably. But you just want to beat him up, right? Have you ever thought of killing him? Xiang Bing was startled. Why would I kill him? We're on good terms. Why would I want to kill him? You're on good terms? Didn't you say that he's a bastard? Why can't I kill such an annoying guy? Xiang Tianxiang continued to smile. It's not that bad. I just want to beat him up. Xiang Bing and Xiang Chong answered at the same time. If someone wants to kill him or deal with him, what will you do? Xiang Tianxiang asked again. Of course I'll save him. The two answered at the same time. Xiang Tianxiang laughed. However, he only laughed along the way. He didn't say anything else. When the two asked, he only said, Think about it yourself. Chapter 395. Then, he laughed heartily to himself, as if he had encountered something funny. Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing were confused. Brother, why do you think Zhuo Duo asked about the source of those ingredients? Xiang Bing secretly asked Xiang Chong. Xiang Chong could not figure it out either. He pondered for a moment and said, I don't know. Maybe he hasn't seen it in his hometown and wants to broaden his horizons. That's why he asked. That's normal. Phoenix City is too remote. Xiang Tianxiang followed them with his hands behind his back. At this moment, He finally could not help but look at his nephew and niece. He sighed and said, "Tonight, second uncle has something that you must remember." "Second uncle, please say it. People like Zuo Duo won't say anything meaningless." Xiang Tianxiang said, "Do you two really remember it? Although it's only a meal tonight, it means a lot to the two of you. I hope that the two of you can think about it carefully from the very beginning. Think about what each sentence means, what purpose it has, what effect it can have. Who is being taken care of, who is being praised, who is being highlighted. The feelings of both sides, the feelings. Why would such a person ask about the source of ingredients for no reason?" As Xiang Tianxiang spoke, he also sighed. What a monster! At least when he was their age, he would never have thought of so many things. He would never have been able to do such a thorough thing. Why did Zuo Duo pass those thick introductory books to Li Chenglong after reading them? And when Li Chenglong read those books, he seemed to take longer than Zuo Duo and read them very carefully. Could it be? Thinking of this, Xiang Tianxiang was shocked by his own thoughts. Could it be that there was something that he hadn't seen completely? At this moment, Zuo Duo and Li Chenglong were strolling in the downtown area. Fenghai City was different from Phoenix City. This city was much bigger and the nightlife was also very rich. Although it was already 10 o'clock at night, the street they were strolling on was still crowded with people. The shops on both sides of the street were also brightly lit and filled with people. So prosperous. Zuo Duo was dazzled and could not help but exclaim. Li Chenglong followed from the side and said softly, "Back then, during our first trial, we obtained a lot of resources in one go and exchanged them for a large amount of contribution points. Old headmaster, he came to talk to me." Zuo Duo walked forward slowly, as if he did not hear him. "At that time, the principal asked me how I found so many treasures. Was it a coincidence or some other reason? I told him the truth," Li Chenglong said. "Then the principal told me that Xiang Quangren, the vice principal of Hidden Dragon High School, was poisoned by the water of the River of Forgetfulness. Then he told me to do my best to find a suitable vanilla orchid. Even if I couldn't come to Hidden Dragon High School, I had to find a way to help you find it and pave the way for you. So when you said that the vanilla orchid was mine, it was wrong. It belonged to both of us," Li Chenglong said. Zuo Duo snorted and said, "Why didn't Grandma he tell me?" Li Chenglong snorted and said, "Who doesn't know that you're a money grubber? If I really told you, even if we found it in advance, you might have sold it. I really don't know how to explain it to the principal." Zuo Duo snorted and said unhappily, "Am I that kind of person?" Li Chenglong rolled his eyes and said, "You're that kind of person. You're the kind of person who always maximizes benefits. A bird in the hand is worth 10 in the bush. Today when I saw you push things to me, I felt that something was wrong. I know that you want to build up some connections for me, but that's not necessary. When we came together. When we leave, we have to leave together. There's you and me and vice versa. No matter what happens, we'll shoulder it together. If there's any benefit, we'll naturally enjoy it together." Li Chenglong said calmly, "I know what you're thinking, but I don't need to differentiate between us." Zuo Duo laughed and said, "If you don't need to, then you don't need to. Look at how serious you are. It's as if I've done something to you. Are you afraid that I'll abandon you?" Li Chenglong snorted and said, "Do you think I don't know you? No, no one knows what you're thinking in your heart. Don't be fooled by your cheerful face, as if you don't care about anything. You're a person with a deep heart. Only sincerity can be exchanged for sincerity. You're reasonable, but you're only reasonable to your own people." Li Chenglong sighed softly and said, "Zuo, you've never purposely shown your intelligence. In fact, you're not necessarily worse than me in terms of meticulousness. In terms of the ways of the world, you're much better than me. I don't want any misunderstandings between us. We'll always be the closest person to each other who can turn their backs to each other." Li Chenglong said seriously. Zuo Duo laughed and patted Li Chenglong on the shoulder. He said, "It's such a beautiful night. Let's talk about something happy. Don't make it sound like I'm bullying you." Li Chenglong snorted and said, "You're making it sound like you're bullying me. There's someone selling cotton candy in front." Zuo Duo said excitedly, "I'll buy you a cotton candy. Come, little swollen, give me a smile." Li Chenglong was not teased by him. But he was made to spit out the tea when he suddenly laughed at the system. Get lost. You dare to tease me. Do you believe that I'll really deal with you when I get back? Amidst the banter, the two teenagers happily walked through the crowd. A small crisis that could not even be considered a crisis quietly passed by. Just as Li Chenglong said, although Zhou Xiaoduo acted cheekily every day, he understood everything in his heart. In fact, he understood it better than Li Chenglong. If Li Chenglong had just gone with the flow and accepted the fact that the vanilla orchid belonged to him, then he would have received the Xiang family's support. What Li Chenglong could have received was the support of the Xiang family in exchange for the Phoenix City's Li family's prosperity. He could have also married into the Xiang family in the future and had a smooth life. Moreover, Li Chenglong's aptitude was not bad and his knowledge was profound. It was expected that he would reach a high position in the future. However, he would have lost a true friend because of this. A true brother would have become an ordinary friend. Perhaps in a short period of time the two of them could still play around and have a good relationship. However, they would never be able to return to the sincere feelings they had when they were in Phoenix City's No. 2 high school. Because at that time the two of them got it together. Although a brother did not care and let you enjoy it alone, if you really enjoyed it alone you were insensible. How many friendships would be destroyed over such a small matter? Li Chenglong saw this point very clearly. Perhaps Zhou Xiaoduo really did not care, but Li Chenglong could not pretend that Zhou Xiaoduo did not care. Because even if they were brothers, they could not bask in the limelight endlessly. That would not last long. When Zhou Xiaoduo denied it in the first sentence and agreed in the second sentence, Li Chenglong had a feeling that something was amiss, so he hurriedly explained. When Zhou Xiaoduo proposed to buy cotton candy for Li Chenglong and flirt with him, it meant that he really did not care. By the way, since you've explained it, I'll accept it. As Li Chenglong said, there was only sincerity in a brother's friendship. If you give sincerity, you'll get sincerity in return. However, sincerity was the hardest thing to give. Perhaps the old principal had really instructed him, or perhaps Li Chenglong's family had received the news. Zhou Xiaoduo did not intend to ask about these. This was no longer important. Swollen was still swollen. This was a person who treated him sincerely and was on his side. It was enough to know this. Why should he get to the bottom of it? The two strolled back and bought a lot of things. There was a lot of food and toys. Of course, most of them were for fun. Li Chenglong took a fancy to a transparent, snow-white dog jade sculpture. When he wanted to buy it as a decoration, he was strongly opposed by Zhou Xiaoduo like never before. Li Chenglong really liked it, but Zhou Xiaoduo also sincerely opposed it. The two almost got into a fight because of this. In the end, Li Chenglong succumbed to Zhou Xiaoduo's abuse of power. He was angry but did not dare to say anything, so he gave up on this good feeling. He really did not understand. That white jade dog jade sculpture was so beautiful. Why did Zhou Xiaoduo not like it? This person was really strange. No one followed us. Li Chenglong's first sentence when he returned to the villa was, I remember that we have a lot of enemies in Fenghai. No one will deal with us for the time being. Zhou Xiaoduo was very sure. He said lightly, if we die or something happens to us as soon as we arrive in Fenghai, I dare to guarantee that none of the families in Fenghai will survive. There is no need for other forces to make a move. The Hidden Dragon High School will be the first to make a move. They can't afford to lose this face. If they can't protect us when we arrive in Fenghai, no genius students will choose the Hidden Dragon High School in the future. And those clans who have a grudge against us are not fools. Not only will they not act rashly, but they will also think of ways to protect us. It's still the same reason as before. If their enemies cause harm to us, they will still be the ones to suffer in the end. Zhou Xiaoduo laughed and said, so for at least 3 months we will be safe and sound. We can play as much as we want. That makes sense. Li Chenglong immediately said, Zhou, I found that this Hidden Dragon High School is not simple. In these 2 days I have inquired a lot of information. This Hidden Dragon High School's upper management is almost the core of a storm. Oh, can you be more specific? Zhou Xiaoduo lay on the sofa. The entire Hidden Dragon High School's upper management includes 1 principal and 8 vice principals. One is the head of martial arts, one is the head of literature, one is the head of teaching, one is the head of weapons, and one is the head of tactics. Li Chenglong began to list the information he received in the past few days. Among the 8 vice principals under the principal, the first one is Xiang Bing's great-grandfather, Xiang Quangren. He is also the sworn brother of the current principal, Yi Chongqing. He is a hardcore supporter. If it wasn't for the fact that he was besieged and plotted against by the UMNO alliance more than 20 years ago, he would still be the second person in the Hidden Dragon High School. In that battle, although Xiang Quangren defeated his opponent, he was splashed with the water of the River of Forgetfulness. Since then, his body has been smelly and it is difficult for him to appear in public. Otherwise, the Hidden Dragon High School would not have become the chaotic situation it is today. Rumor has it that there are other suspicious points in this matter. The one who did it is said to be the UMNO alliance. However, this matter has not been confirmed. Li Chenglong's eyes flashed. You must know that a few decades ago, the Hidden Dragon clan was at its peak. It was a good time for the clan to be at its peak. Several clans in Shangjing were racking their brains. They wanted to insert people into the Hidden Dragon clan. There were also a few local clans who were working on this matter. Li Chenglong revealed a sinister smile. 7 chapters, begging for monthly votes to make up for the previous 2 days. Monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Subscription. Thank you. Chapter 396. Zhou Xiaoduo remained silent. Ever since Vice Principal Xiang was poisoned by the water of the River of Forgetfulness, there were 3 major changes in the Hidden Dragon High School. First, a Vice Principal Lu escorted supplies and students to the Sun Moon Pass. First, it was for the students to gain experience, and second, it was to provide talents for the army. However, they were attacked on the way. It was said that the attackers were from the UMNO alliance. Vice Principal Lu did everything he could to protect the students on this trip, but his cultivation was crippled, and the 3 teachers who accompanied him were all killed in battle. However, they held on until the reinforcements arrived. All the students were safe and sound. When Vice Principal Lu came back, he was already on the verge of death. Although he managed to keep his life in the end, he had no choice but to resign from his position and retire in the family quarters. After a month, another Vice Principal sure went out for a meal. It was just an ordinary dinner. However, he was inexplicably poisoned by the immortal intoxication. Finally, he was found in a room in the red light district with a naked woman lying beside him. Coincidentally, the reporters rushed in first, and then the people of Star Shield also rushed in. In just one night, the whole internet was boiling. The scandal of the corruption of the Vice Principal's ethics was immediately spread everywhere. Vice Principal Shi took the blame and resigned. He disappeared from Fenghai City. 19 years ago, during the Battle of the Sun Moon Pass, a masked warrior broke into the battle at the critical moment. He fought against 23 UMNO alliance soldiers and stabilized the precarious battle line. However, he unfortunately died in the battle. His body was smashed into pieces. Later, a DNA test confirmed that he was Vice Principal Shi Yunfeng. In the will left by Vice Principal Shi, there was only one sentence: I am willing to sacrifice myself to serve my country. Can I get my innocence back? Li Chenglong sighed as he said this. Vice Principal Shi participated in the battle with a mask. He started as an ordinary soldier. That year, he was ranked first among the top 10 desperados of the Eastern Army. After his death, his real identity was exposed. Marshal Dongfang was furious and ordered a thorough investigation. However, Vice Principal Shi's classmates were his classmates. After Vice Principal Shi's accident, his classmates and their families all died at home the next day. None of them were spared, and there was no trace left behind. And it's precisely because of the death of his classmates' entire families that the netizens speculated that it was Vice Principal Shi's revenge. As for that whore, her entire family died that very night. This matter has become an unsolved case. Even if Marshal Dongfang intervened, he wouldn't be able to find out the truth that was buried back then. As for the third matter, it was about Vice Principal Cheng, who was ranked last. Not long after Vice Principal Yusher's accident, his 2 beloved granddaughters were raped and killed. His 3 grandsons all died in the mouths of star beasts when they went out to train. Vice Principal Chung resigned and disappeared from Feng Hai. But anyone with a discerning eye knows that he is still in Feng Hai. For more than 10 years, he has been investigating openly and secretly, intending to find out the truth of the case that year. However, it is also true that Vice President Chung did not enter the Hidden Dragon School and left a vacancy. Hidden Dragon School, in less than a year, has lost 4 vice principals in a row. Li Chenglong sighed softly. Zwa. Now do you understand how deep the waters of Hidden Dragon School are? Zwa Xiaoduo said indifferently. What I am more interested in now is who is filling in. The first vice principal to fill in is Vice Principal Wei. He has a good relationship with Hidden Dragon School. Not only did he come from Hidden Dragon School, he was also Principal Yi Chongqing's classmate. He was originally the Chief of Staff of Shangjing Garrison District, and now he is replacing Vice Principal Xiang's position. The second Vice Principal is surnamed Wu. It is said that he is a direct descendant of Shangjing's Wu clan. This Vice Principal came through manipulation. It is said that the Wu Yuntian you killed, and this Vice Principal Wu's Wu clan are from the same clan. It is just that they are from the same direct descendant, a branch. The third vice principal to fill in was originally Shangjing's Ancestral Dragon School's teaching director. His surname is Liu. The last vice principal to fill in is surnamed Gao. He came from Shangjing's Gao clan. The Gao sisters you killed were from Shangjing's Gao clan's branch in Fenghai City. According to seniority, they are Vice Principal Gao's great-granddaughters. Originally, there was a rumor that these sisters caught Vice Principal Gao's eye. If they had good results in the Dragon and Tiger ranking tournament, they would be recorded as direct descendants of the main clan. Unfortunately, once they are impermanent, everything will be for naught. Li Chenglong shook his head and sighed. No wonder the 2 of us receive such high treatment. The other students are squeezed into a dormitory, but the 2 of us have a villa. Moreover, it is right next to the principal's house. It is the principal's property. Zwa, this whirlpool is not shallow. Zwa Xiaoduo pondered for a long time. He did not speak. Why don't we transfer schools? Li Chenglong was not joking. He was sincere. After careful consideration, he put forward this suggestion. This was only mentioning the 4 vice principals. The other important positions, such as the head teachers of each class, had not been mentioned. The heads of the various departments had not been mentioned. This was simply a huge swamp that would make one feel despair, as long as they understood it a little. This could no longer be described as a trap. A swamp. A bottomless swamp. One careless move and they would sink into endless despair. Transfer schools. Zwa Xiaoduo raised his head in surprise. Where are we going now? You just mentioned the 4 vice principals. Aren't there 4 more vice principals? As for the other 4, even if only 2 of them are loyal to Principal Yi, and Vice Principal Xiang has just been released by us, aren't we almost evenly matched? What's more, the things you said before were obviously traps and framings. They were just taking advantage of loopholes without any evidence. There are almost none of them who have openly fallen out with us. Zwa Xiaoduo patted Li Chenglong's shoulder and chuckled, swollen. We are still far from the point of despair. You have to have confidence in yourself and you have to have confidence in me, your boss. When have we ever been afraid of playing dirty? Li Chenglong sighed. His eyes were somewhat listless as he muttered. The problem now is that we are not as dirty as others. Zwa Xiaoduo walked to the window and looked at the dark night outside. He said softly, it's not that we don't know how to play dirty. It's just that we don't want to play dirty. But if others really want to play dirty, we can also play along. He smiled faintly. We may not play dirty, but we can play more ruthlessly than them. Zwa Xiaoduo's snow-white teeth flashed in the night. He laughed and suddenly opened his mouth wide to the twinkling lights of Fenghai City outside the window. He said softly, The sound caused by this shout was actually very soft and even the action was very funny. However, Li Chenglong did not feel like laughing at all. He only felt a chill down his spine. He seemed to feel that Zhuoxiaoduo's mouth had swallowed all the darkness outside. Take a rest. Zhuoxiaoduo said silently. The things you said are really too dirty. It makes me very uncomfortable. Li Qinglong was silent. Indeed, it was too dirty. The result was even more dismal. When he saw the conspiracy, all kinds of benefits, and all kinds of dirty means pouring into a high martial arts academy that cultivated talents for the mainland, and saw the teachers who were focused on cultivating the students, and some who did not even understand the dirty means outside the school, fall one by one to those dirty means, this feeling was as if his chest was about to explode from the suffocation. Zhuoxiaoduo did not ask whether the families of these replacement vice principals had been investigated, because there was no need to ask. The investigation was certain, but it was also certain that nothing could be found. In this world, there were countless ways to frame a good person to eternal damnation, and there were no loopholes. Even if the whole world knew that this person was wronged, it was useless. A stink was a stink. The so-called justice and justice might be late, but it would never be absent. It was just a comforting saying. Even if it really came, would the justice of being late still mean anything to the person involved? How could the loss and harm caused be compensated with a slogan? With the power of these big families, big corporations, and big families, it was really enough to clean up all the dirty things. There were no loose ends left behind. There was only one way to deal with this kind of thing. Immediately catch them red-handed when they were being framed. And there was a prerequisite. The other party had to be a core figure. As long as it was not a core figure, it could still be instantly cleared. Even if you knew that the other party was behind it, you still couldn't do anything to them. Unless they were completely disheartened and directly destroyed everything, regardless of whether you admitted it or not, they would directly destroy your whole family. But even so, it was still possible to be led astray and kill innocent families. A group of teachers who taught students in the school, many of them retired from the battlefield. On the battlefield, they risked their lives to kill. Flesh and blood were dripping. Knives went in and blood came out. Their minds were filled with killing the enemy. After retiring, their minds were filled with students, martial arts, the future of the students, how to send suitable talents to the battlefield. How could they be the opponents of politicians and schemers? They did not even need to think about it. Dirty compromise, politics, darkness and sneakiness. How could they be spared? Swollen, analyze carefully. Analyze and deduce according to the individual. Don't do it together. Zhuoxiaoduo said, it's very easy for people to have the feeling that this is something done by a group of people. But if you work hard in this direction, you're done for. You'll be directly led into a maze and can't get out. It's better to catch one and focus on digging down. Even if it involves another one, temporarily make a note of it and then throw it aside. Continue to dig up the original one and completely solve the first one, then talk about other things. Zhuoxiaoduo said. Okay. It's not early, sleep early, there's still a battle tomorrow. Zhuoxiaoduo said. Don't think too much, there's still a lot of time. I'm going to sleep first. Zhuoxiaoduo turned and went upstairs. This chapter suggests rereading from the end of the previous chapter. Chapter 397. Li Qinglong sat on the sofa, still feeling indignant and unable to calm down for a long time. His lungs were about to explode from anger. When he first heard these things, Li Qinglong already felt like he was about to have a cerebral hemorrhage. Now that it came out of his own mouth, he became even angrier. He faintly heard Zhuoxiaoduo murmur a sentence. It's just that these people have never met unreasonable people before. Li Qinglong was stunned. Zhuoxiaoduo had already gone upstairs and disappeared. Li Qinglong suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. For a moment his hair stood on end, because he thought of something. Zhuoxiaoduo seemed to have never reasoned with anyone other than his own people. Even if he occupied the absolute height of reason, he still never said anything reasonable from his mouth. The so-called reason did not exist with Zhuoxiaoduo. Including that time when Li Qinglong was beaten up by students from other classes, Zhuoxiaoduo blocked the door to beat him up. The reason was completely on Zhuoxiaoduo's side, but Zhuoxiaoduo had never tried to be reasonable from the beginning to the end, and dealt with it in a normal way. I'm here to beat people up or to be beaten up, not to reason. This was Wuxiao's style of doing things. Li Chenglong's eyes lit up. He seemed to understand Wuxiao's meaning. They had already used such dirty means, and they still wanted to look for evidence everywhere, and then take action after getting the evidence? In this world, how could there be so much reason to talk? As long as they were sure that they were on the opposite side, they just had to fight. One by one, there would be a time when they were right. It's a pity that our current strength is far from enough. If only Zhua and I were at the cultivation level above the God-reigning realm, we could ignore everything else and directly fight. Li Chenglong muttered to himself. Zhua Xiaoduo went upstairs and sat in front of the window. He wanted to calm his heart that was about to explode from the excitement just now. However, the more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Then, he suddenly did a few somersaults on the bed and hummed a little tune. Come on, it's fun. Anyway, there's plenty of time. Then he winked at the mirror. Woof woof woof. Oh, wahaha. He really succeeded in making himself laugh. His gloomy mood was swept away. Only then did he take out the Void Extermination Pagoda from his spatial ring. He put on all the weights that could be worn. He took out the training hammer from his ring, and entered the Tower of Annihilation in a flash. The sound of the wind rose rapidly in the Tower of Void Extermination. But Wuxiao's bedroom was silent. In the morning, Class 1 officially started their first class. The whole class found that Wen Xingtian didn't seem energetic today. He even looked a little tired and dispirited. His whole person seemed to be haggard. Teacher Wen went to the podium and was silent for a while. He called out 4 or 5 people in a row and used his primordial qi to check the meridians of these people again. He was silent for a long time and said, "Your cultivation methods still need to be changed. After days of fighting, I found that I neglected a very important thing after analyzing your performance in the battle. That is, cultivation aptitude and personal intelligence are not equal. So, the few of you still need to change." When Xingtian paused and said later, "I will personally take you to the Pavilion of Martial Arts and choose a few secret books. The kind that doesn't need to use your brains." The true meaning of this sentence was very funny, but no one in the class laughed. Everyone could see that when Xingtian had racked his brains and spent a lot of effort in these 3 days of testing, the current situation of each student was firmly engraved in his heart. Then he carried out a comprehensive analysis. Everyone's name, height, weight, age, when they started, what stage they were at, what achievements they had, the original direction of cultivation, how they changed to other cultivation methods, the best time to cut in. What kind of evaluation were the 3 touches and 5 comments, what level they were at, and what kind of talent they had. Who had habitual movements in the fist art, who had what kind of subconscious reactions in battle, whether they were good at dealing with different kinds of opponents. Who had long arms, who had short legs, who had long upper body and short lower body, who had short upper body and short lower body, who had short upper body and short lower body, who had strong bridge and horse but lacked flexibility, who was overly flexible but had an unstable foundation, who had excessive pursuit of power, who had excessive pursuit of skill, who had a cold personality, who had a strong desire to kill, who had a big picture view, who was worthy of the student's reliance. Who was suitable to use a saber, who was suitable to use a sword, who was suitable to use other weapons, who was suitable for assassination, who was suitable to be trained as an assassin, who could be trained as a shadow, who could be trained as a general or a commander. Who was suitable to be a spy and carry out special missions. If they were to form a team, other than those who had already formed their own teams, who was the most suitable to form a team with and who could complement each other the most. When Xingtian had sorted out all of the above-mentioned matters once through, now it could be said that except for Zhua Xiaoduo, all of the 35 students, himself, his parents and his original teacher, did not know as much as Wen Xingtian. The effort he had put into this was unimaginably vast. For the past 3 days, the students had been fighting non-stop and cultivating non-stop. Wen Xingtian, on the other hand, had not closed his eyes for 3 days and 3 nights. He had been paying attention to the students and paying attention to every detail of the students. Every student was a book. Some were easy to read and understand and easy to set up. Some were like a deep pool that could not be immediately seen to the bottom. They needed to be explored, analyzed, and targeted. How can it be so easy to be a teacher, especially a teacher of high martial arts. This was what the old teacher in charge of the teaching group had said when Xingtian had first joined the school. In the martial arts schools below, many of the teachers' cultivation levels are not high and their skills are limited. It is very easy for them to teach the students astray. They will impart their own habits, movements, and mistakes to the students. Therefore, in the first month of high martial arts school, the initial period is the most precious. You must discover all of their mistakes during this time and correct them as much as possible. In the first month of high-intensity battles, do not worry about the students getting hurt. Especially remember, in battles between people with similar cultivation levels, if there are frequent situations of rapid defeat or serious injury, the loser must have a major flaw or fatal mistake. The main purpose of the first month is to fix, to change, to straighten all these crooked trees. But for those students with strong personalities, do not force them to fix. Just let their personalities grow wild. Even if you die of exhaustion within the first week, you must grasp all the information of all the students. Not only must you memorize it in your heart, but you must also engrave it in your mind and heart. In the past, when a teacher saw his own disciple fighting with the enemy on the battlefield, he should have won. But because of a habit that the teacher did not notice, he exposed a flaw and finally died in the hands of the enemy. He felt guilty for the rest of his life. He regretted it for the rest of his life. You must put your heart into it. You can be strict, you can scold, you can mock, you can use any method you want. But no matter what method you use, you must put your heart into it. Put your heart into correcting the flaws of your students. Correct the shortcomings of your students. Give your all to your students, because the future of the entire continent is in your hands. That year, the old teacher's words echoed in Xingtian's mind day and night. Since the battle at the Sun Moon Pass that year, he had injured his meridians and felt that there was no hope for him to reach the top in this life. But thinking of his own talent and fighting experience, he was not willing to be buried in the battlefield like this. So he turned back to teach at the Hidden Dragon School. After 700 years of teaching, the number of students who came out under Xingtian's tutelage had long been unknown. Perhaps there were high and low cultivation levels, big and small abilities, but none of them had any basic flaws or unnecessary actions. He was like a repairman who was strict to the point of almost obsessive-compulsive disorder. He trimmed each tree until it was straight to the point where it could grow into a tree. He nurtured each and every baby eagle until it could fly in the sky and absorb nutrients in the sky to grow. Then he let it fly and soar in the sky. The Hidden Dragon School was plagued by internal and external troubles. Evil winds and evil spirits attacked from all sides, but it was still able to stand tall among the three great martial artists. It was because the Hidden Dragon School had such a group of brilliant teachers who could not be defeated and could not be defeated. All of them were the dreamlike strength of the high school that Yi Chongqing had painstakingly brought up single-handedly. As the saying goes, a great teacher must have a great teacher before having a great teacher. This was a matter of order. There were many teachers like this in the Hidden Dragon School. Every one of them poured their heart and blood into their students. Every graduation season, the ones who cried the most often were not the students but these teachers. This was because they had poured too much heart and blood into their students. They did not cry for departing, but for their own students. Once they left, those students who rushed to the battlefield would not survive for 10 years. The piles of bones that were sacrificed on the battlefield and turned into tombstones were filled with the heart and blood of the teachers of the Hidden Dragon School. Every death affected the hearts of the teachers. Every year, the teachers of the Hidden Dragon School would organize a group to go to the frontline cemetery to visit their deceased students. A teacher held onto his student's tombstone and cried bitterly, "I only hate that I taught you too well. Your bones are too hard. Child, even if you take a step back, so what?" In these 3 days and 3 nights, Xingtian had created 36 files for each of his students. In the future, he would continue to add to the files as he discovered them. This was his compulsory course. He would do this homework every time he taught a new class. From now until the graduation season. At that time, every student's file would be at least a foot thick. The amount of heart and blood he had spent on this was unimaginable. Of course, there were exceptions. For example, Zuoxiaoduo. After he had finished creating Zuoxiaoduo's file, he threw it aside. There is only one way to deal with this bitch, and that is to ruthlessly beat him up. When Xingtian looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo's eyes with great interest, this was a sign that he could go all out. Maybe some people will think that this chapter is too lame. Chapter 398. Zhuo Xiaoduo sat at the front. He felt that teacher Wen was looking at him in a weird way. He felt more and more restless, as if he was sitting on pins and needles. Why do I have a bad feeling? This feeling is even worse than when I faced teacher Qin that day, Zhuo Xiaoduo muttered in his heart. He could feel more and more that his homeroom teacher, Teacher Wen, was full of malice towards him, the freshly minted class monitor. When Xingtian's condition did not look good, but his actions were still swift and decisive. The first thing he did was to divide the students into 9 groups. The groups were not evenly distributed according to the number of people. For example, Zhuo Xiaoduo was in a single group. Li Chenglong, Xiangchong, Meng Zhongjun, Pai Yibao, Yu Yan'er, Hao Han were in the second group. Then there was Xiangbing, Zhen Piapiao, Jiaquang, and the others in the first group. The 9 groups were divided according to the current cultivation level and combat strength level of the individual. They were divided into 9 levels. This grouping is not fixed. Everyone can move forward to the next group. Whoever you can defeat, you can get 100 points from the target's current points as a reward for your victory. Everyone rubbed their palms together when they heard about the reward and punishment system. Teacher, what about me? Zhuo Xiaoduo asked. He was in the first group and there was no higher target. Who would he need to defeat to get points? Could it be that anyone could beat him? That would be awesome. You. When Xingtian said lightly, you are the target of everyone in the class. Anyone who defeats you will get 1,000 points. After all, you are the class monitor and the chief. Of course, there will be a special reward for defeating you. Considering that your strength is far above the other students can join forces to defeat you. It will be fine as long as there are no more than 10 of them. Oh right, you can't take the initiative to challenge anyone because your goal is to defeat me. If you can defeat me, my 7 million points in the Hidden Dragon High School will all be yours. Oh. Zhuo Xiaoduo was dumbfounded. 7 million points? What a great temptation. But your cultivation base is at the pinnacle of the royal god realm. With my shallow cultivation base, if I want to defeat you, let's not talk about how long it will take, but at the very least it won't be something that can be done in 3 to 5 years, right? Most likely he had used this trick to fool the previous first seats of the class, right? In the end, wasn't your 7 million yuan still the same? Cunning old fox, too cunning. Also, why do I have to lose 1,000 points every time I lose? Even if the others can't beat me, they can team up. What if I'm not in a good state and get knocked out by them? Wouldn't I lose a lot? Fuck, this was clearly discrimination, blatant discrimination. Zhuo Xiaoduo was not convinced, but he did not dare to say anything. He could tell that when Xingtian's eyes were scanning his face with malicious intent, if he said one more word, he would become Wen Xingtian's punching bag. A gentleman does not fight when the odds are against him. At this moment when he could easily get beaten up, masters would decisively back down. As expected, Wen Xingtian looked very disappointed. Next was the martial arts theory class. Wen Xingtian taught the students not only by words, but also by example. For an experienced teacher like him, his rich experience in teaching was really to the point that it made people's hair stand on end. He could give countless examples according to each student's background, family, experience, and personality. He could give countless examples that were almost tailor-made for each student. The first time the students heard it, they would be able to hear it and remember it for the rest of their lives. After 2 hours of teaching, he took the students to the special martial arts field of Class 1. He messed up the order and started the fight again. After that, he continued to mess up the order and fight without any difference. Zhuo Xiaoduo was free at this time. He was alone on the side training with weights. When Xingtian did not care about him. Right now, all his attention was on the other students. He realized that among all the students in Class 1, there were only 2 students who had the least amount of problems, or rather almost none at all. Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong. These two guys did not have any fancy moves when fighting. Once they made a move, they went straight for the vital points. They treated the fight as if it was a real fight and the opponent was an enemy. When Xingtian admired the teacher who taught Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong in Phoenix City's No. 2 high school, this kind of fighting foundation almost did not need to be fixed. A student who did not have any flaws on his body was really rare. Even Li Chenglong, who was slightly weaker, was very good at seeking luck and avoiding danger in a fight. Seeking luck and avoiding danger here referred to the sense of danger and the choice to deal with the opponent's attack. If the opponent's attack was not dodged in time, he would make a judgment at the first moment and choose the position that would consume the least energy and not affect his counterattack to deal with the enemy's attack. This characteristic was too rare. One had to go through countless battles and reflect on his own shortcomings after each battle to come to a conclusion. He had to integrate this experience into his body and turn it into instinct. Compared to these two people, there were also people who had more outstanding performances, such as Xiang Chong, Xiang Bing, Meng Zhongjun, and a few other children of aristocratic families. During the fight, every movement they showed was mixed with a kind of beauty. The women were more elegant, while the men were more chic. Although their movements were all inadvertent, it made the onlookers feel that it was very pleasing to the eye. They were full of heartfelt admiration. Smooth and natural like moving clouds and flowing water. They were indeed children of aristocratic families. However, when Xingtian only snorted at this kind of performance, disdaining it. Beautiful? Chic? What was the use of it on the battlefield? Do you know how much effort you've put in for this posh? It required the cooperation of the whole body to achieve that kind of beauty. But on the battlefield, could beauty and chic kill people? Or would the enemy be merciful because they thought you were handsome and beautiful? Would you not win when you should win and not kill when you could? The plot of not killing because of one's looks had always only appeared in novels. In a real battlefield, only the one who survived to the end would be the winner. Lying on the ground, no matter how beautiful, was still a corpse. When Xingtian spoke casually as he watched the battle, at the side the teaching assistant was quickly taking notes. Every word and sentence was recorded in the book. Suddenly, when Xingtian rushed into the battlefield in a flash and slapped Xiangchong 7 to 8 meters away. Xiangchong was stunned and blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. When you retreated to dodge just now, you could have avoided me by stepping back. Why did you add a backflip? Are you retarded? When Xingtian's face was stern. I've already observed your movements 3 times. When you encounter a similar move, you will definitely use a chic backflip. When you don't need to turn sideways, you must twist your waist sideways. Are you fucking fighting or dancing? Also, when you attack, you must have one hand in front and one hand behind. If you attack with the front hand and defend with the back hand, it's fine. But your hands behind your back are used to make cool poses the entire time. Who taught you such a bad habit? Someone like you still wants to join the army? Even if there is a day when you can set foot on the battlefield, you'll have to fight on one side and die on the other side. You'll have a funeral for your family immediately. When Xingtian's words were harsh and sharp, Xiangchong was dizzy from the slap. He was stunned for a long time before he said this. I've been practicing like this since I was young. Do you know what it means to advance and retreat like lightning? To send and receive at lightning speed without any sloppiness? What's the use of your sloppy movements? Are you trying to be cool or handsome? Are you here to go to school or to flirt with girls? No wonder your Xiang family's reputation has been getting weaker and weaker these years. Since Vice Principal Xiang retired, all of you have started to change from the Overlord family to the Bai family, right? You're like this and so is your sister. Is this the current style of the Overlord Xiang family? When Xingtian's voice was stern. If you do this again, I'll break your legs and throw you back home. Do you think I won't dare? Well said. A majestic voice sounded from behind. Zhou Xiaoduo followed the voice and saw an old man with gray hair and beard at the entrance of the martial arts gym. Although the person had gray hair and beard, he stood there like a towering mountain. His height was no less than 2.4 meters, and his stature was so imposing that it was hard to believe. He was as straight as a mountain, unshakable. That domineering and majestic aura gave people a feeling of invincibility at first glance. Thank you, Teacher 1. The old man's voice was as loud as a bell. What kind of bullshit is this bunch of brats practicing? I just finished teaching those brats at home a lesson, and when I came over I was so angry that I almost fainted. They deserve to be beaten up. They only know what real combat is after being beaten up so many times. Hearing this voice, it wasn't hard to guess that this was Vice Principal Xiang, who couldn't go out because of the water from the river of forgetfulness. This old man's face was still a little pale, but the domineering aura that overflowed from his body already showed the power of a fierce tiger coming out of the mountains. He really lived up to his reputation. When Xingtian turned his head and said without any trace of politeness, "Vice Principal Xiang, congratulations on finally stepping into the Hidden Dragon High School. But I've taught for so many years, and I've never allowed outsiders to watch. Even more so, I don't allow outsiders to point fingers. Do you want to go out yourself? Or do you want me to send you out?" Hearing this, all the students immediately praised the teacher in their hearts. So awesome! This was directly driving the vice principal out without any hesitation. Teacher 1, did you forget that your level is not as high as his? Xiang Kuangren didn't feel offended at all. Instead, he smiled apologetically and said, "I'm here this time to see 2 people. When Xingtian frowned, "It's your business who you want to see, but right now you're delaying my teaching. Please let's talk after class." Xiang Kuangren coughed and stopped talking. When Xingtian became impatient, he raised his wrist to look at his watch and said angrily, "You've already delayed me for 2 minutes. Get out. Immediately." Chapter 399. All the students felt their scalps go numb. Is this the way to talk to the principal? Is there going to be a big battle? They had heard that Vice Principal Xiang Kuangren was also a ruthless person with a fiery temper. Judging from his words just now, it was obvious. Then they heard something that should never have happened. Vice Principal Xiang nodded repeatedly. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I'll leave now." With a swoosh he disappeared. The old man who seemed to have such a fiery temper, and was as lofty as a mountain, was chased away just like that. "Teacher, you're awesome." Zuo Duo could not help but exclaim. He could not help but admire Teacher Xiang. "What are you shouting for? Come here, let me see what you have." Zuo Duo was pushed to the edge of a volcano by his heartfelt words. When Xingtian had wanted to beat him up for a long time, because this kid had been training by himself, it seemed to be too easy for him. Now he finally found a reason to do so. Zuo Duo was immediately met with a beating that was more intense than a storm. Yes, you didn't see wrong. It was a beating. When Xingtian suppressed his cultivation level to the inner core realm, and then gradually increased it to the high-level inner core realm to fight with Zuo Duo. From the beginning to the end, Zuo Duo was suppressed to the point that he could not even breathe properly. However, this was also the battle that Zuo Duo had fought to his heart's content recently. Fist techniques, sword techniques, and all kinds of sword techniques were used one after another. He was fully immersed in the battle. In the end, he even integrated his knowledge of hammering techniques, such as lifting heavy weights as if they were light and lifting light weights as if they were heavy, into his sword techniques. He attacked Wen Xingtian relentlessly. Wen Xingtian watched as Zuo Duo wielded the civet cat sword as if it was flying. Occasionally, there would be a ferocious strike that smashed down like a sledgehammer. Sometimes it was just a sword, but it felt like a sledgehammer had smashed down on it. Then he looked at Zuo Duo's shoulders and arms, Zuo Duo's waist strength, and the rotation of Zuo Duo's other hand. Suddenly, his eyes flashed. With a slap he sent Zuo Duo flying, following in the footsteps of Xiang Chong. As a result, squad leader Zuo, who had been showing off his invincible might and brandishing his sword to his heart's content, was slapped by his sword. His entire body spun more than 400 times, and was thrown 130 meters away. After his defeat, he was still feeling dizzy and confused. He had lost in a baffling manner and did not know what was going on. When Xingtian cast Zuo Duo aside, "I'll find you tonight. Wait for me." Zuo Duo was confused. What's wrong? When Xingtian had other plans in his mind, but he did not say them out loud. With his many years of experience on the front line and his many times watching Wuxia's movements, he could not believe that this kid's sword was not his ultimate weapon. Was this kid's trump card a sledgehammer or a sledgehammer? He had to get to the bottom of this tonight. After making up his mind, he immediately focused all his attention on the other students. Only a strand of his mind set his spatial ring to a self-destruct program. If he encountered an accident one day, and someone wanted to touch his spatial ring, the ring would self-destruct. Inside the ring were the files of the 36 students he had created. If this information fell into the hands of the enemy, it would be a disaster for this group of children. For an entire day. Then he heard Wen Xingtian's angry roar. All for show. It's all for show. Who are your teachers in the martial arts school? Misleading students. Zhen Piapiao, where did your bad habit of flipping your hair come from? How do you want to flirt with these few strands of hair? If you do it again, go shave your head after class. Are you here to study or to flirt? Xiangbing, are you looking for death because your inner demon is gone? Is the Xiang family's domineering attitude to be reckless and reckless? Can't you learn from Li Qinglong? His foundation is much weaker than yours, but his current strength is much stronger than yours. Don't you have any shame? Can't you leave some dignity for the Xiang family? I really feel sorry for Xiang Quangren. He has no successor, no successor. Pai Bao, where's your leg? Is your leg broken? Don't you know how to kick people? Why don't you hit a girl? Where did your bad habit of being protective of girls come from? Do you believe that I won't castrate you so that you won't have the right to be protective of girls in the future? Meng Zhongjun, what's with your posture of raising your hind leg when you stab with your sword? Are you learning how to pee like a dog? Do you need me to give you a nickname of pee with a sword, so that the whole world will know of your heroism? How Han? Why did you retreat just now? Is the sword in your hand the only weapon in your entire body? Can't you hit your head? Can't you use your hands? Do you have legs so that you can walk? Don't you know how to kick people? Is your brain flooded with water or urine? Li Qinglong, what the hell is wrong with you? Do you only know how to hit Xiangbing? Or do you only know how to be ruthless to Xiangbing? Why aren't you steel for other women? If you can't smash Shen Piapiao's nose in 1 minute, I'll break your legs and throw you out of Qianlong. Can't you grab and hit such long hair? What's the use of a woman's hair in battle? Isn't it so that you can grab and kill it like a chicken? Isn't your garrison shop known as the home of soldiers? How did you cultivate such a group of gentlemen? Are you fighting with women or drinking coffee with women? You're so polite. Fuck what garrison shop? Change it to a pickup shop. Gentlemen? They're all fucking hypocrites. It had to be said that other than being good at teaching students, Teacher Wen's mouth was equally good. No, it should be said that it was poisonous. This poisonous tongue dared to say anything. It could scold thousands of soldiers and horses. Zhuo Duo realized that once this teacher Wen entered the teaching mode, his entire person changed. Originally, he looked like a refined teacher, but after entering the teaching mode, he completely disappeared without a trace. In a second, he turned into the roaring emperor of a cesspool. Every sentence made people have the urge to jump off a building, especially those girls. They were scolded until their eyes were red and tears were about to fall. But because of this, they were scolded even more fiercely. Why are you crying? Did someone die in your family? This is a battle. Cry for me. If you have the ability, cry for me until you die. Don't stop until you die from crying. Under such a poisonous tongue, their bad habits were quickly corrected. No one wanted to be scolded a second time. It hurt their self-esteem too much. Then, everyone realized that Teacher Wen not only scolded them, but also hit them. Moreover, he did not control his strength. Chu Chu sent Xiangcheng flying with a slap. Only blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. She was the lightest one among them. Yu Yaner made a cool move. She turned around and drew her sword. As she turned around, her fine black hair immediately turned into a waterfall of rain, scattering down in a beautiful and magnificent manner. Her skirt and hair fluttered. The beauty drew her sword. It was a national beauty. Her opponent was stunned by her glory and was stunned for a moment. But after 2 slaps, The two of them were slapped into the nourishment cabin by Wen Xingtian. If you draw your sword, then draw your sword. Why did you turn around and flutter? What's wrong with your hair turning into a waterfall on purpose? Can't I grab your hair and beat you to death? Or can't I stick to you the moment I turn around? Fuck. How can you be stunned by a woman? Have you never seen a woman in your life? You don't learn your lesson. Next time I'll break your third leg. And you, Gu Qianfan's don't return sword is like a pole dancer when you use it. I really want to see Gu Qianfan's expression when he sees this with his own eyes. Just thinking about it makes me happy. I can finally laugh at that old fellow for not teaching properly. What sort of no-return Gu Qianfan? You should change your name to pole dance instructor. With one slap, Yu Yin Air broke one of her opponent's legs. With another slap, Yu Yin Air followed in her opponent's footsteps and broke one of her legs. They were sent into the nourishment cabin one after the other. Teacher Wen did not waste any time. He would only hit you once for a bad habit. Once hit, you would not dare to do it again for the next 3 years. After 3 years, the movements would be fixed. Even if you wanted to, you would not be able to use any extra movements. You would not be able to use them at all. When Xingtian's roars were like thunder, they kept ringing in the ears of the students. Each of them was trembling with fear. They used 120% of their strength and 120% of their attention. It lasted until 11:50. The bell for the end of class finally rang. When Xingtian's roar came to a stop, and everyone collapsed to the ground as if they had been drained of all energy. In fact, based on the current intensity, it might not be everyone's limit. However, their mental tension had already reached the limit. Their nerves were stretched so tight that they were about to break. After reviewing the whole course of the class, they did not have the time to gloat over others' misfortune. Their minds were filled with the words they had been scolded. Then, they compared the new movements with their original movements. It was almost 2 levels higher. After this class, Li Chenglong's title as the leader of the Iron Steel sect became even more unshakable. The 3 beauties of Class 1 were each disfigured by him twice. The other female students were also sent into the nourishment cabin by Li Chenglong at least once. That the leader of the Iron Steel sect was simply deserving of the title. Let's go eat. When Xingtian clapped his hands and said lightly, well, the results of the training are acceptable. He turned to the teaching assistant and said, don't forget to remind me in the afternoon to bring a cup of tea to moisten my throat. A big cup. Swixiao Duo and the others collectively felt a chill run down their spines. Was he going to continue his poisonous tongue in the afternoon? The students of Class 1 rushed to the cafeteria like a swarm of bees. In the first month of freshmen, everything was free. Food was no exception. They could eat for free. At this time, the cafeteria was already filled with people. Swixiao Duo relied on his physical advantage and was the first to rush into the cafeteria. When he saw a table that had just been vacated, he immediately sat down. Then he started to call out, there's a table here. Come and take a seat. A few senior students were walking over with food. When they saw that their target had already taken a seat, they did not care and wanted to sit at this table. Swixiao Duo smiled innocently and said, seniors, I'm sorry. This table is taken. If there are only a few of you, you can eat together. However, there are so many of you. I have many classmates over there. Chapter 400. These senior students were wearing 2-clawed golden dragon costumes. They were obviously second-year high school students. They were holding dishes in their hands and were calm and unhurried. Was this table taken? They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It had been a few years since they heard such a tone. This was the beginning of the school year, and someone dared to court death. If the other party was a 4th-year or 3rd-year student, it would be fine. But what was wrong with this 1st-year student? Was the newborn calf not afraid of the tiger? The leader looked at Swixiao Duo from head to toe and seemed to find him familiar. He couldn't help but say playfully, I was wondering who was so arrogant, daring to snatch our table. Isn't this the Sword King? Snatching your table? Swixiao Duo was stunned and couldn't react immediately. How could you talk like that? It seems that I've already sat down before you guys. I've already sat down and greeted my people. You guys come over and say it's your table? Zhuoxiaoduo smiled and ignored him. He stood up and waved his hand. Swollen little bug, Bing Dan. There's a table here. I've already taken it. Come over quickly. Xiangbing's face was red and she was fuming. She cursed her father 1,000 times in her heart. Can't he mention my nickname in front of anyone? Why did he have to mention it in front of this bastard? Then she cursed Zhuoxiaoduo 1,000 times. What kind of occasion was this? How dare you speak such nonsense? Didn't everyone know about it? At this time the leader of the students said lightly, Sword King Zhuoxiaoduo on the Longhu list, led Phoenix City second high to the top and took first place. He's known as a rare genius. But no matter how talented you are, it's not a reason to snatch our table. His eyes were sharp. Get out of the way, this is our table. If you dare to snatch it again, we seniors will have to teach you a lesson. Zhuoxiaoduo continued to greet them. Come over quickly. He frowned and said, What do you mean by your table? I was the one who sat down first. Wait a little longer, there'll be an empty table soon. Okay, that's it. What do you mean by that? A girl in the opposite crowd sneered. We clearly came first. What right do you have to occupy our table? You guys didn't even get a meal and just snatched a seat. How are you going to eat? We've already gotten our food. Let us out. The girl was very dissatisfied with Zhuoxiaoduo's behavior. How ungentlemanly. He actually didn't give up his seat for a beauty. Although Xiangbing and the others walked over, they didn't sit down when they saw the dispute. Li Chenglong asked, Why don't we wait for a while? Why? I was the one who sat down first. First come, first served, do you understand? Zhuoxiaoduo narrowed his eyes. This is our table. The girl said angrily. Zhuoxiaoduo laughed angrily. Your table? Why don't you call it and see if it answers? Every time it was mealtime in the high martial arts school, this kind of fight over empty seats was a common occurrence. Everyone had their reasons and everyone had their reasons. The girl said that it was their table and it made sense. They did come over when they saw that there was an empty seat. However, before they came over, Zhuoxiaoduo had already sat down. This was also the truth. Therefore, when Zhuoxiaoduo said that the seat was his, it was only natural that they should have it first come, first served. Of course, Zhuoxiaoduo did not know that the other party had already taken a fancy to this table. Even if he knew, he would not give it up. Just tell us, are you giving it up or not? A few of the second-year students were angry. They were no longer as calm as they were before. Sit down, all of you. Ignore them. I took the table first, so it's ours. Zhuoxiaoduo kept calling out to his classmates and ignored the second-year students. The face of the leading boy became gloomier. What's wrong with you? Why are you being so unreasonable? Zhuoxiaoduo stood up impatiently and said, The most annoying thing is to be reasonable. How can I be more reasonable than you? This is the high martial arts school, and we are martial arts students. Why waste your breath talking about reason? Come, let's fight. If you win, this table will naturally be yours. But if I win, I'll have to trouble you to find another table. Do you dare? Let's do it. The leading boy handed his food to the girl next to him and laughed. You asked for it. In the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts School, every meal there would be people fighting over tables. This was a very normal thing. Often, in the time it took to eat a meal, there would be more than 10 fights outside the cafeteria. It was too common. However, it was the first time that a new student who had just entered the school for 3 days took the initiative to provoke a senior student. Many of the spectating students stopped eating and looked over with interest. This kid was too arrogant. He was simply courting death. Don't talk nonsense. I hate being reasonable the most and I hate nonsense even more. I'm the only one here. Who's going to fight on your side? Let's go, let's finish the fight and eat. I'm starving. Zhuoxiaoduo turned over and jumped down from the 3rd floor. As soon as he landed, he shouted loudly, The one upstairs, come down. Before his voice died away, a few rows of heads popped out of the cafeteria window. They were all there to watch the show. Everyone looked over and found that it was a strange yet familiar face. They couldn't help but talk about it. Someone already shouted, "Sword King!" Swishaoduo laughed and saluted with his hands folded. "This is my first time here, and I'm not familiar with this place. Today I'm going to embarrass myself here. Everyone, if you have money, please help me out. If you have money, please help me out." He actually spoke like a street performer. Everyone burst into laughter. Xiang Chong and Xiang Bing looked at each other subconsciously, and then looked at Li Chenglong. Only then did they turn their attention back to Swishaoduo. This isn't a way to make money, right? A white shadow flashed by the window, and the tall boy who was the leader of the other party also came down. He was calm and composed. "Swishaoduo, I didn't mean to embarrass you. But now you're the one who's being overbearing." At this moment, a person suddenly came out of the crowd and jumped down. He said lightly, "Zhao Wensheng, it's just a fight. Why do you have to bully your new classmates? Just give me face and give the table to Swishaoduo and the others." The person who came was also dressed in white. He was a two-clawed golden dragon. Obviously, he was also a second-year student. This person was tall, handsome, and had an outstanding temperament. He had an extraordinary presence. When he stepped out, everyone present couldn't help but be stunned. Zhao Wensheng was even more shocked. "Wu Yunhai, how come it's you? But why did you step out to help Swishaoduo?" Wu Yunhai was the elder brother of Wu Yuntian, who died at the hands of Swishaoduo. He was also the cousin of Wu Yuntian. He was a member of the Wu family. With this, Swishaoduo knew the general background of this person without any introduction. He couldn't help but tilt his head and look at Wu Yunhai. His eyes were full of curiosity. Would the Wu family really be so kind? Wu Yunhai smiled and said, "I stepped out because I don't want the two of you to hurt each other because of a momentary fight. How can the Wu family break the rules of the life and death arena? Since Swishaoduo came to Hidden Dragon City, he is our classmate and our junior. Even if we have no intention of becoming friends with him, we can't just watch him get bullied under our noses. What if someone instigated it to be our Wu family? Wouldn't we be wronged? So Zhao Wensheng, how about we just let it go?" Wu Yunhai smiled helplessly. Zhao Wensheng's face was gloomy. "Now the whole school knows. How can I let it go? If it were you, could you afford to lose face like this?" Wu Yunhai's face darkened. "Then you must fight?" "Of course. In the cafeteria, the winner eats while sitting and the loser eats while standing. This has been the rule of Hidden Dragon City since ancient times. Why? Should I give you face now?" Zhao Wensheng said angrily. "It's just a normal fight for a table. Why did you bring up the Wu family?" Wu Yunhai snorted and said, "Since it's like this, I'll fight with you. A senior bullying a new student. Even if I win, what's the glory?" Many of the onlookers felt their jaws drop. Was this Wu Yunhai crazy? Why did he have to get involved when others were fighting for a table? This was a normal thing. Why did he have to get involved? At this time, another voice shouted from above. "Wu Yunhai, get out of the way. Both sides are fighting for a table. You're the third party, what the hell are you blabbering about? Swishaoduo came to Hidden Dragon High School. Can't he get beaten up? With the time you're causing trouble, both sides would have been settled long ago." Swishaoduo raised his head and looked at the window above. He saw a person wearing Hidden Dragon High School's four-clawed golden dragon costume standing there. Although this person looked young, in his early 20s, the beard on his face had already begun to form. He was tall and broad, with a straight nose and a square mouth. He had a wide face and big ears. Although only half of his body was exposed, he was like an iron tower full of power. This person's status among the students was obviously very high. Wu Yunhai finally took a step back and said, "Since it's like this, Brother Zhao, please show some mercy." Zhao Wensheng snorted and said, "Do you think I'll beat him to death? It's just a small punishment." Swishaoduo stood in front of him. He finally frowned and said, "Are you guys done blabbering? Why is it so troublesome to fight in Hidden Dragon High School? Senior Zhao, you've been blabbering for so long. You've already finished eating. Are you sure you're not here to pick a fight with me?" Zhao Wensheng snorted and said, "You're right. Blabbering really does waste time. Come on." Before he finished speaking, he was already in a fighting stance. But just as he said, "Come on," he suddenly felt his vision go dark. He saw stars twinkling. Zhuo, with his amazing speed, arrived in front of him in an instant. A fist smashed down brazenly. Zhao Wenxing's reaction was quick. He snorted and also punched out without dodging. Bang! The two fists fiercely collided. There was no room for hesitation. Zhuo only felt a slight pain on his fist, but without thinking, he kicked out. Dragon Gate Kick. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.